Call a meeting order for the second day. Please silence your cell phones. The old president had a fine situation if you got caught with your cell phone going off, but mine might be a little more, you never know. A roll call for all present. Commissioner Lundvall.
Here.
Commissioner Jolovich.
Here.
Commissioner Masterson.
Here.
Commissioner Brokaw.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Bell.
Here.
And I'm Commissioner Ladwick. Thank you. Some comments to start the day off with is that members of the public who wish to address the commission on any agenda item, please fill out a comment form located at the registration table and hand it to one of the department staff who will forward it back to us. Assisting with the meeting today is Mark Goki from the Jackson Regional Office. Mark is also, I've been informed, going to be retiring within a short while. If you're participating via Zoom, you should have submitted an advance comment form prior to the start of the meeting. If you would still like to comment on an agenda item, please contact the host of the meeting. As we work through the agenda, the public will have the opportunity to address the commission. To ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak and as a courtesy to others, please limit your time. Commissioners, please make sure your mic is on when you speak so you can be heard. If it's red, it's on. Would you join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a little bit of a change on the agenda items, but not a whole lot, but we'll start out with Josh Corsi, Muley Fanatics, and Marissa Taylor. Welcome.
Mr. President, I'd also just acknowledge quickly, even though she didn't come up to the mic, we also have Jessica Crowder, who's the Executive Director of the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust.
Welcome.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for making the time. Josh and I were able to catch up, and I'm hopeful that we can start today off on a positive note and hopefully make day two a little engaging. And my name is Marissa Taylor. I live about 2 hours south of here on my family's ranch, and I am on the board of the Wyoming Stock Growers Land Trust. The land trust was created by the Wyoming Stock Growers Association about 25 years, coming up on 25 years ago, and is oriented to keeping Wyoming's agriculture land in agriculture through conservation easements. As a board member, one of our primary roles is to help with development and funding the land trust. And so historically, ranchers have been one of our target audiences, and it's not the perfect fit for what we're looking for. So the work that the land trust does is incredibly important for all of the work that you all do in keeping Wyoming's intact landscapes intact by preserving our deeded or private land in agriculture and as open space and habitat for wildlife. And so as we've been developing or brainstorming ideas for who else cares about these spaces, I reached out to Josh to see what we could come up with for utilizing the assets that we have, which is open space and wildlife habitat, to help with development for the land trust. And in collaboration with Muley's, have come up with an idea to be able to auction or raffle off access for hunting. The landowners often have the land, but they aren't able to write a check equivalent to what somebody might be able to write to have access to hunt on that ranch. We want to bring this to you early, so that we know there's going to be some details that need to be worked out on how this is going to work, in Wyoming, and are hopeful that we can roll it out or develop this idea over the next year. Might invite Josh, up as well to kind of address any of the aspects from Yuli's that I might have missed.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa, President Ladwig, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. I think this idea that Marissa brought forth, I think has a ton of merit. But it does have some details that need to be worked out. And we thought this is certainly not something that we were trying to aim to have implemented or even be able to launch this fall, but that over the next year, we could have these conversations with the commission and the department to really try to narrow this down and dial it in. That could be something that would be, I think, very valuable. Intact lands, as Marissa said, that truly is what embodies the wildlife resources that we have that thrive. We're a big supporter of conservation easements. Obviously, the land trust and their work certainly bodes well for us to partner and align our efforts with. And really, the impetus of this idea is how do we develop this into an opportunity where it can be a fundraising mechanism that people would support? I think not to reinvent the wheel, but maybe Marissa, you want to touch on the idea that kind of brought us to this point?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So it's actually a not-for-profit in Pinedale called Fishing for the Fight. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's a group of Pinedale residents that got together to raise money for out of area healthcare. So if somebody has to go to Salt Lake for chemo for a month, it helps cover all of the costs that are associated with being there and then also not being home. And it's a great initiative. And they do all of their fundraising in one day through a fishing derby where landowners offer access to a beat of water. And then the anglers have to bid on that beat of water and a fishing guide. And then it's a derby. So it's like biggest fish, littlest fish, funniest fish, everybody gets prizes and they raise a huge amount of money. And I thought, like, what is it about that we could incorporate to the land trust where it's a one day event that doesn't require all your, and it gets the job done for what they need for fundraising. And it kind of, what clicked for me is that it's access that the anglers are paying for. And our ranchers have that access and are often very willing to donate that access. But like I said, they can't write the equivalent check of what somebody might be able to write to come and hunt or fish on that property. And so to be able to do a really targeted development event, also highlight some of the really great habitat and wildlife that we have on these ranches, and it works well with the mission of the land trust, which is to protect these open spaces for agriculture and wildlife, and we have abundance of that there. And so but I knew that I didn't quite have the audience or the depth of knowledge to pull that off. And so Josh was the right contact, and I think the right partnership, which is also something that's very Wyoming, right? We come together to make good solutions for preserving the things that are important to us. And open space, I think, is something in this case that we all really care about. Jessica did put together this flyer, and the land trust put together this flyer for you. And so they have a little graph on the back that says, 90.5% of the conservation dollars goes to stewardship. That's awesome. But the 8% administration is what I'm really trying to help. And it's for our current conservation easements. It's to put conservation easements on more properties. It's to protect the conservation easements that we have already on properties, especially as they transition from owner to owner, so that everybody understands the asset they bought. But conservation easements are just one tool that we have. And in a changing environment, the land trust has the opportunity to start to incorporate other tools and be creative. And to do that, we need administration dollars. And so the heart of this is development to protect our open space.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to that is that, the idea that we're looking at trying to model something that would be of similar fashion to be able to implement is a little different than a fishing opportunity. And where that really becomes the issue for this opportunity is how particularly knowing that this may be geared towards someone as a non-resident to provide them some sort of guarantee of them being able to hunt on this type of offering. And so that's why I think the conversation started where, how do we connect these dots? And so initially I had reached out to Director Nesvik to see if there was some opportunities that we could at least talk about this, see what his thoughts were, if there was some merit to move it forward. I think Director Nesvik, as he will probably attest, also thought there was some merit to this idea, but it really the only opportunity that would provide for this type of auction would be through some sort of commissioner supported tag, a commissioner's license for next year that could be earmarked specifically for what this cause is and the effort of the land trust to be able to promote not only their activities and their interests, but then also have an offering that would be pretty unique for someone that was interested in not only already wanting to pursue a commissioner's tag, but then have it packaged with an access to a land that normally would not be available to them. And so again, it's very early. I think that just to be able to have the opportunity to be able to have this think tank, to be able to share ideas, to be able to collaborate directly with the commission on maybe other ideas that the commission would have. I think if anything, we're just trying to plant the seed that we would like to continue this conversation while we work out the details over the next year. So with that, I guess I would stand for any questions for either I or Marissa.
And Mr. President, if I may, I'll just jump in right here. So that I did have a great conversation with Marissa and Josh, and as he stated, I think there's a real opportunity here for kind of a three-way partnership. And it's very well aligned with all three potential partners' missions, bringing access, habitat conservation, all of the interests of Josh's great organization, which a lot of that's access, bringing all that together, and creating a pretty unique, cool kind of an opportunity and that otherwise doesn't exist. I mean, there's ranches that are eased and the easements are held by the Stark Rivers Land Trust that have tremendous hunting opportunity that a lot of folks don't have access to. And, I think the goal of the land trust would be to go to those folks and secure a donated access, which you put that with a commissioner license, could raise a significant amount of money. The department and the commission have, most of you know this because you've been here long enough to remember, but we have partnered with the land trust on a significant number of projects. They've been an excellent conservation partner across our state. They've got a very wide reach. I mean, you can look at this little brochure, and they've done easements in almost, or are working on easements in almost every county in the state. And I think this is something that does merit further discussion, and I think it's something that is not in the too hard to do box. I think we could figure this out, but it will. Obviously, I asked these folks to come because I thought the commission needs to start thinking about it because it would require some commitment on your part. So.
Yeah, I think the other thing worth noting in the conversations that Marissa and Director Nesvik and I have had is that by no means is this need to be limited to just the opportunity for a non-resident. I think there are opportunities for Wyoming residents as well. But I think in regards to the commissioner license and those folks that are spending those type of dollars for those tags, I think that is probably more targeted to the non-resident. But I think the land trust is completely open to the idea at a much smaller fee, knowing that the guaranteed access that is permitted to Wyoming residents, that those opportunities could be pursued as well. So again, I think we're just scratching the surface of this, but I think it's something worth exploring.
Thank you for your presentation. I think it's a fantastic idea to put it all together, and it seems like it could definitely be divided with a commissioner license, without a commissioner license, and resident, non-resident. What a good deal. Anybody else have any comments they'd like to make? Thank you for your presentation, and we'll look forward to, as commissioners, to work with you on it and see what we can do.
All right. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go with Dan Thompson. And one of the items that we missed yesterday because we was busy all day long. Thank you, Dan, for waiting.
Annual Thompson Show.
The Dan Thompson Show, yeah.
Dan Thompson, Brian DeBolt. Maybe, yeah, Dr. Chaos is Commissioner Roberts, I guess. President, Director Nesbitt, members of the commission, thanks for seeing us here today. This is our annual update on work within the large carnivore section. It's more a story about our team and what we do on an annual basis. And while my kids didn't appreciate me not being home last night, maybe yesterday wasn't the best day to have this talk because there's enough things going on in the room. So today, again, we're going to talk about the 4 large carnivore species that we have here in Wyoming. I chose tracks this time. You know, tracking is a fundamental component of what we do, and people that are good trackers are very in touch with their surroundings and what's going on with the natural world around them. And so, again, our job is all these 4 species. Now, of course, grizzly bears are still listed as threatened. We'll talk about that. But we're going to talk about all 4 of these species. I'm going to talk about some of the monitoring that we do, and then Brian's going to talk about the conflict management we do. That's all intertwined, of course. Some of this is a repeat, but it's repeatable because it's important. Our goal is to maintain viable populations of these species across the state. A very important component of that, critical component, is work to resolve conflicts and to reduce conflict potential. We use localized expertise, public comment process, and desires and attitudes. Obviously, there's a great deal of interest in these species. And so when we're talking about these, we have the data to back us up, but we also have to listen to the public and our own regional biologists and wardens when we talk about these things. And then, of course, the foundation, which we'll talk about at the end, is our Bear Wise Wyoming program, which is not limited to bears, but that education and outreach is that foundational component for large carnivore conservation and management. Again, there's a very wide spectrum of viewpoints, especially with these species. Some polarize more than the other. I think yesterday was emblematic of some of these things that you deal with, that we deal with. The comments regarding feed grounds, wolves were brought up as a major detractor issue. They were also brought up later as something that can help it. And so we realize all these different divergent viewpoints, but there's a lot of in between too. Again, nothing we do is mutually exclusive. The information that we gain, the insight that we gain from managing conflicts and monitoring these species informs our overall knowledge of these animals. We use that to direct our harvest objectives. The winter that we keep talking about from last year, this is why we came to you, why we've been in front of you more than usual in the past year to change some of those mountain lion harvest objectives and increase those temporarily in the Wyoming range. Again, all this work is synergistic and works together to better our understanding. And again, we'll talk about the Bear Wise program, but it's beyond state or local reach. That's national, that's global. People have interest in these species. And then you'll hear me say this a lot. It's very much a team approach within our section, within the wildlife division, within the department. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I feel like we've talked a lot about black bears and lions in the past year, but I'm still going to talk about them. But as far as, you know, how we evaluate the populations, we look at trend and we evaluate that. A lot of that information is through our harvest. Wolf and grizzly bear monitoring is more inclusive, obviously, because of their previous or current listing status. And then it's important, you've heard me say this before, we manage these species different than ungulates. It's based on their ecology, their densities, and their roles in the ecosystem. And that's okay. We have to do things differently because they're very different species. So I'm going to start with mountain lions. Mountain lions, of course, are the most reclusive or elusive of these species that we monitor. It's not as easy as going out and counting mountain lions. We have different methodologies to enumerate in certain circumstances, but honestly, one of the big things we do is we evaluate what's going on with the trend in the population. We look at sex and age structure to determine what our harvest objectives are. But like right now, our guy Justin Dellinger and Justin Clapp are meeting with some geneticists today to talk about use of, whenever we harvest a cat, we take a genetic sample. There is a way now to evaluate source sink dynamics, movements among mountain ranges, among hunt areas and things like that, and evaluate our overall management. So we're always looking at more and new ways to look at things. You've heard us talk about the work in Bates Hole in the Casper region. The field component of that is finished, and Justin's finishing up the analysis of that right now. And so I'm not gonna steal his thunder with his final results or anything like that, but I do want to talk a little bit about that project there. 26 mountain lions were monitored over a 4-year period. You're gonna see in the next slide, it's hard to keep an animal on air in an unlimited year-round area. But we were able to get a lot of good information from that. The fact that the Herculean effort is getting 220 CWD samples from animals that were killed by a mountain lion. You know, in our CWD protocols, we're trying to get 200 samples over 2 to 3 years from hunter harvested. Our people were able to go out on an animal that was killed and pull a CWD sample that was viable. And that's a big component of that. We're looking at that role. How does predation work in with the role of CWD? And as you can expect, it's not black and white, but that's something that we're pretty excited about. And when Justin's finished up with that, I haven't told him this yet, but he will present to the commission those final results. And again, this is a lot of collaboration. This is, again, a collaboration with the University of Wyoming and other research partners. Just to give you an idea. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to remind, am I allowed to go back? The other important member of the team are those hounds there. Without those, Luke Ellsbury and Clint Atkinson in the room, those are their hounds. They're really good at what they do. And without good hounds like that, we wouldn't have these animals caught that we do. Kona, Boone, Cooper, Birch, Bonnie, and Ruger. So anyway, these are the mountain lions that we monitored through time, and you'll see the longer the bar, the wider the bar, the longer they were on the air. Some of these animals were harvested quickly. It's ironic. Seems like whenever we start a project somewhere, there's a increased interest in hunting lions and taking animals with collars, but that's an important component. I mean, that informs our decision of what's going on in that area. You've seen me present some of this before, but what we do is then the clustering algorithm allows us to go in and assess, there's 1,200 of those sites, 745 of them were feeding sites. And what we see is what the animals are feeding on, and also the landscape of where it's occurring, the spatial scale. And this, honestly, there's a big chunk of area that we couldn't access that would have had a lot more elk in the diet probably. And then it allows us to tie this down further. Again, we know mountain lions are obligate carnivores. They kill prey, they eat it. But there's more to it. In this area, we saw about half the prey is deer, but we had an individual that keyed in on small mammals and ate raccoons and geese and porcupines, things like that. We had one animal the first year of life keyed in on pronghorn. So there's always more to the story. And what I think is very interesting, the first way we really projected it this way, this is something you've heard me talk about before. What we see is, as a mountain lion, these are those animals as they age, how their diet changes. We talk a lot about things going on with elk and deer and predators in this state. What we do see is that as mountain lions age, they are eating more elk. So again, that adds to the dilemma that we have to try to understand this better. There's a little delay and then click. Okay. I'm gonna switch now to captures around this area. So a few years ago, this was a little different than we normally decide where we're gonna monitor mountain lions. This was brought to us from the University of Wyoming. They wanted to look at assess fine scale movements on these migration corridors between mountain lions and mule deer. And so we were tasked to catch some mountain lions and put some collars on them. Of course, we started it last year, but I was extremely proud of our crew to know when to back off, to know when to not push it. And so we backed away. We didn't want to put any more impacts on the already stressed ungulate population. Still managed to capture 3 mountain lions last year. And then this winter, the crew really hit it hard. And we use a different suite of methods. We used cage traps, we put out carcasses. Obviously, there was less food on the landscape, so mountain lions were keyed in on the carcasses we put out. That was advantageous to make sure we got those animals caught, and we do have 10 mountain lions currently on the air in the Wyoming range. And that's mainly to look at those fine scale movements with migration, but that'll provide insight into more things that we need to know. And again, that's another collaboration with the Game and Fish regional personnel. Adam Hymas wasn't here yesterday, but he's not here. But we thank the regional personnel for their expertise, and then working with that University of Wyoming. And we did lose a dog last week. That is Whitney. I didn't feel right without talking about her. Geez, I hope I don't get choked up here. So she's 13 years old. That was her last cat last week, that 10th one. She's probably, I asked Luke how many. I would guess over 500 cats when you count the biopsy work we've done, but several hundred. Went in her dog box, went to sleep. Perfect ending for a hound, but it doesn't make it easier, right? And so these are some old locations, but it just shows you how this was earlier this fall, but they're using the front. We've got animals marked around through Cokeville too. And so this will really provide some of that. You saw those maps that Kevin had yesterday with them, the different migration patterns. We can start tying some of those together. And again, everybody wants to know more, myself included, about predator-prey relationships. And it gets really tricky when you have multiple carnivores and multiple prey species in one area. So we're always continuing to work. We're excited about this work in that Bates Hole country to evaluate the role of predation with CWD. And then we'll continue to evaluate that predation in relation to mule deer populations. That's what's very near and dear to everyone in this state and beyond. And you see some of these things where the elk component of the diet, it's much more nuanced than right, killing one to benefit the other. So we're going to switch to wolves. I'm not going to talk too much about wolves because Ken Mills, our biologist here, will be talking to you in much more detail and much better than I can in the near future. In 2023, this is going to be last year's data. Ken's working on the annual report right now. But again, more than 2 decades, we've maintained a recovered population above objective. 28 wolves were harvested last year. Recently, the Fish and Wildlife Service came out with a finding on the wolves in the west that basically, again, demonstrated that listing was not warranted for western wolves. These are things you've seen before. We do employ the use of radio collars in wolf packs that allows us to really enumerate. Wolves are easier to count if you have them collared. You can fly. You can count them. You can count them with collars on the ground. But again, this demonstrates that we can look at these things. If we can use some finer scale data to look at those relationships with ungulates and other species, it allows us to assess survival and mortality. And then, as you know, you've seen this before. That's how we use those numbers to talk about our harvest and management. And this was last year's map. We will have a few new packs this year. We did have increased reproduction this year in the population. Recently, over the last month or so, but more recently, 39 wolves were collared in 18 packs in the trophy game area. This is mainly done through the helicopter captures, but it's a lot of work running around herding cats basically to make sure everything gets done well. But that's our really way that we can get insight into that population. Of course, any animal that we handle, we're taking genetic samples. We're taking as many samples as we can when we have them in hand. And again, you look at the yo-yo effect of being listed or not. So this is when they were listed, and you see that we set this objective that really works as objective around 160. And the reason that is set that way is what we like to see is a reduced number of agency actions on wolves and a reduced number of depredation. And that's our goal with that, and to allow that opportunity. Again, those accurate estimates provide, you have all seen Ken get up and give his talk and walk through it. And you've seen people in the room that absolutely hate wolves to those that absolutely love wolves. Try to fight it. When you have those numbers, it's hard to. And so that's why we have the amount of information that we have on these species. And of course, there's a peaked interest in wolves to the south of us with Colorado and around us, quite honestly. But Again, the work that we do to maintain our wolves and above objective is very important to how we manage these species. And again, I just spoke to you about black bears in January, and so I kind of took a different route today. We know there's very increased interest in black bear hunting. There's an increase in more opportunity. We responded by increasing harvest in many areas. One of the benefits of the work that we've been doing with our monitoring is Emily Davis. We worked with the University of Wyoming again, and she did her master's, just defended in December, looking at some of these movements and bears' use of the landscape and also use around bait sites. And so basically, a lot of the information in these slides is demonstrating what people that hunt black bears know. They're more nocturnal. Especially the males are hitting baits more at night. Females are hitting them more in the day. Again, that is another justification of our management plan. But what's interesting is, as we know, as estrus comes into play, males come to those baits more during the day, and that's all factored into how we manage those species. And what we're excited about is, I think with our density estimates, we can start tying that in. What role does local density of a black bear population impact the use of bait and the dominance hierarchy of males and females? And then again, this summer will be our first revisit. So we've been doing these systematically across the state with the goal of coming back. So again, in 2015, we did this, and we're coming back now, decade later, basically, and we'll evaluate what's going on with this black bear population in the Grays River, which has a lot of interest right now. And one other thing, this May, we'll be hosting a WAFA sanctioned black bear workshop in Jackson. And we're excited to bring managers in from across North America. We just got word that we're having 7 new bear biologists from Mexico attend this event. It's open to commissioners. If you would like to attend this, you gotta pay, but no, but we're excited to have this. We're having a special session of black bears in the grizzly bear world. It's something that we're going to be hosting, and so just wanted to throw a shout to that. We're not party planners, but we're excited to be putting this on. I'll end with grizzly bear monitoring before switching over to Brian. Again, the mindset has shifted, well, not for all people, but shifted from this notion of preservation to recovery to management. And we've been in a management phase despite the threatened status for decades. It does make it challenging when we're dealing with this a thriving black grizzly bear population, which we're all very proud of, but there's still this hovering notion of threatened. And that if you're outside of the area that has grizzly bears, I don't expect someone who's not around here, they see threatened, they think they're threatened. They're threatened on paper. And so that does make it challenging. Again, I'm going to talk about these areas a little bit. The recovery zone, of course, the red, that was the original area that we hope to recover grizzly bears. We're well beyond that, as you are well aware. The demographic monitoring area is the area where we monitor the population. We received comments after the MOA and about mortalities within and beyond the DMA. And I think one thing that's lost on people is that the DMA does contain all suitable habitat, but it also contains areas that were considered mortality sinks by the study team. So the suitable habitat's about 45,000 square kilometers. There's another 5,000 in there that does take into account mortalities that occur within that area that may be disproportionate. And so there are some misconceptions of what the DMA is and is not. But generally, we're talking about the population within that DMA. Again, this, as far as we can tell, it's the most heavily studied population on Earth, going back 40 plus years. And I think what's the expertise, the experience, but the context is what is very important. There's a lot of people that are interested in what's going on, or that can take the data and do things differently with it, but without that context and the people on the ground that have been working on it, that's where we can really understand that population. Just recently, you approved, and we talked about the Tri-State MOA, which directs the allocation of discretionary mortality. We are in the process of updating Chapter 2, which is the demographic monitoring of the population, which is part of the conservation strategy, the overarching document for a delisted population. We will be talking about that. A lot of work at nights, weekends, trying to get that right. And we'll be talking about that upcoming at the April YES meeting. Again, all these things are to show that the population is fully recovered, demonstrate our commitments to maintain that, and to celebrate the success of delisting the population. One thing that we have done, and I've talked to you about this already, but we've shifted to a different model. We realize that models are only as good as what you put into them and the people that are looking at them. But this integrated population model, we're using these for other species in the state and elsewhere. But the key foundation of this is that it brings the full suite of demographic parameters into play annually. So we can annually assess what's going on with the different sex and age cohorts of adult males, adult females, dependent young. These things we didn't have the ability to do just a few years ago. It was still good. This provides us more insight on an annual basis and more precision and accuracy. It also allows us to project into the future. And so, and I will say that we're not black box modeler type of people, and the people that developed the IPM were very frustrated with us because we asked so damn many questions about how it worked, because this is the data we've been collecting forever. But it's a key movement forward. And I'm going to walk you through a little animation here. And so this is the estimate for the grizzly bear population through time using that IPM. You'll remember the minimum population recovery criterion has been 500 bears forever. That is not a target. That's to maintain genetic and reproductive potential. But that's just to give you some frame of reference. In the year 2000, we started seeing density dependent impacts on portions of the population. By that, I mean, we started to see decreased cub and yearling survival. So infanticide, more intraspecific strife, shrinking of home range size. But obviously the population kept growing. In the year 2000, that population was relegated basically to that recovery zone. So there's still a lot of good habitat out there. So we expect the population to expand, which it did. Then in 2006, in that time frame, we started to see it leveling out. Everything has to level out at some point. Human beings are one of the few species that are breaking the curve on that. But again, as we started to fill the habitat, the population started to decrease in the trajectory of increase. It's still increasing, but we started to see that in 2006. You'll remember we delisted once and relisted again. The problem being that as the population was slowing in trajectory, it was the same time white bark pine was dying because of pine beetles. But that did result in an extremely in-depth analysis of the population where we could show that it wasn't because of white bark pine, which led to the subsequent delisting in 2017. And we did manage bears for a year as a state agency before they were relisted. One of the components is at that time, there was a management objective for a time frame. The judge felt we didn't explicitly say we would recalibrate the population with a new estimator, so we've done that. And so if we look at those recalibrated numbers for a mean time frame, that's what those numbers are. But we don't want to be stuck. We don't want to be held to a preordained objective from the Fish and Wildlife Service. So what we're talking about now, and what you heard about with the Tri-State MOA, is we're agreeing to manage the population within or above this range of 800 plus grizzly bears. What you see is that everything kind of lines up right here as we started to see the population trajectory changing. Again, we're still growing, but you can only grow so much, and we can't be held to what the population is now because we're more. We're at 900, last year 965, we're between 950 and 1,000 probably. And so again, this allows for management flexibility, but it also addresses issues that those that are against delisting have, and I think it's a good path forward. And so we'll be talking more about that in an upcoming meeting. And the success of all these is increasing conflict potential. And I will turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Dan. President Ladwig and members of the commission, Director Nesvik, thank you again. I'm Brian DeBolt, large carnivore conflict coordinator for the department, and appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today and especially after a really grueling day yesterday. I hope yeah, we can just give you some basic information of kind of how conflicts went last year with these 4 large carnivore species and not have as much controversy and whatnot, even though large carnivores do create a lot of controversy for sure, as Dan mentioned. So I thought it was interesting. John gave a pretty good historical perspective about feed grounds, and we also got some pretty long-term information on the Wyoming range deer herd. And so I usually present some relatively recent conflict data, and I will go over last year's data, but I decided to give a more long-term, since we've been recording conflicts with trophy game animals in Wyoming about the past 40 years through this graph up here. And it is telling. I mean, obviously there's an increasing trend going on there, but you see some pretty significant ebbs and flows in the data, the number of conflicts that we record on an annual basis. But more recently, you know, you kind of see that there's obviously some annual variations that I'll talk about, but there's kind of a more stable trend there towards the end. And I'll contribute that to a lot of things. One is, you know, our programs got a little better. We went through a period of time there. We definitely had folks to manage these conflicts, but the large carnivore section itself, it was the large predator section at one time, and then it was the trophy game section, and then the research and monitoring program was separated from the conflict program, and then they were back together, which is where it should be. And just different changes and different personnel and the way we manage things. And we're learning new things. We got really good people in place. We got lots more permanent folks within the conflict section. And so I think, including the other things that I'll mention of why there's some annual variation in conflict numbers, that's a big part of it. We're kind of getting better at it. And that's also a reflection all the way up the ladder to the commission as well. You know, we've been able to not only get good folks who work seasonally doing this type of work, but we got a pretty good system within our section. We work really well with the regions. Our regional supervisors help us out tremendously. Wildlife admin all the way up through the commission. So this is a reflection of everybody's efforts for sure.
Brian,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Sorry for the very basic question. What is a conflict?
Okay.
Is it the killing of livestock? Is it a confrontation with a person? Tell me what you mean by that, please.
Yes.
I'm
President
sorry.
Ladwood, Commissioner Mastern, that's an excellent question, and I think it's on the next slide. So, thank you. Yeah. So, like you say, it takes a tremendous amount of work from a lot of folks, including yourselves. The decisions that you make on our behalf trickle down to making our lives easier and definitely benefiting wildlife and the public. So we appreciate it very much, including some of the folks that are in this room that are in the large carnivore section and all the wards and biologists. So it is a tremendous effort, and I just have to thank those folks. There's too many to mention right now. So again, the 4 species: grizzly bears, black bears, mountain lions, and wolves, where they're classified as trophy game animals. Any of the information today on wolves is only in the trophy game area. Nothing I talk about are where wolves are classified as predators in the state. So, Commissioner Masterson, a wildlife conflict, and specifically a trophy game conflict, is a bona fide incidents where there's specific property damage, agriculture damage, you know, livestock is killed, a public safety issue, unfortunately where a human is injured or killed. And it's not just a bear grazing dandelions in somebody's backyard or an encounter. We do record encounters. None of that data is here because that's so underreported. Somebody, yeah, walking down the trail, bumps into a mountain lion, they part their separate ways, not a conflict. Okay, definitely an encounter, but not a conflict. So it's bona fide damage or some sort of other aggressive interaction between people. So why is the management of these conflicts important? Well, it definitely promotes tolerance for these potentially dangerous large carnivores on the landscape. And the fact that the department puts so much time and effort into first trying to alleviate these conflicts, and secondly, trying to mitigate them after they occur, does promote a lot of department support as well. So, of course, human safety is paramount when dealing with these. And the data that I talk about, which isn't much, this is real elementary stuff that I'm gonna show again just for informational purposes today. But it's a minimum of these legitimate, bona fide, verified conflicts. There could definitely be more out there, some that are unreported, frankly. But this is a very, very concise data set that we keep really good track of. So, but it is a minimum for sure. So more on Mr. Masterson's question, just a sighting or encounter differs significantly from an actual conflict where something's killed, there's property damage, a bear receives some sort of non-natural food reward. And so we're only going to talk about the conflicts today. So combining all the species, usually grizzly bears kind of dominate this graph, and we have more conflicts with grizzly bears on an annual basis. But last year, black bears came in by a nose, and just slightly, almost the same statistically wise, but most of those conflicts with black bears were attributed to black bears getting into trash in the Jackson, Sheridan, and Lander regions. That's why we just saw a significant increase in the number of conflicts in those three areas with, black bears getting into trash. So that's why you see those trends. I'll talk about these species individually, but 430, again, minimum recorded conflicts throughout the whole state in 2023. Mountain lions specifically, relatively low numbers, typically with mountain lions, and most of it is mountain lions killing sheep. One thing I have to note here, though, there's 10 conflicts, but that doesn't mean that only 10 sheep were killed. So if a mountain lion comes in to a sheep herd in the middle of the night, kills 4 sheep, that's one conflict. They do kill 4, but if it doesn't differ in time or location necessarily, it's one conflict. Easier to record that way. It's like a bear comes into, an area this big, knocks down that garbage can, knocks down that garbage can at a property. That's one conflict. So could be way more animals actually killed, but it's just one conflict. So the pet or / guard animals, that's usually dogs and cats, frankly. Mountain lion having a conflict, killing a cat on somebody's front porch. Cattle, we did have a few. One interesting one was a mountain lion actually came in and killed several yak, Y-A-K, calves over by Smoot. Very interesting. We hadn't had that before, but that falls into a cattle category. So as a result of that, we captured 5 different mountain lions, and 2 of them were removed, lethally removed, and 3 of those were relocated to another place. So wolf conflicts. Almost boring to talk about wolf conflicts in this, again, 30,000-foot view. Wolves kill cattle. That's what they do. And we definitely removed some wolves in response to that. This year wasn't as bad as we've had in other years. Wolves aren't a threat typically to people. you know, they're just not. They are a threat to pets and different things, but livestock producers feel the brunt of, yeah, too many wolves in a given area. So in the trophy game management area, we removed 6 wolves as a result of these conflicts for sure. Black bear conflicts, again, most of this garbage in Jackson and Lander and Sheridan regions. So on down the line, property damage, you know, we had mostly that's a bear just breaking into like an outbuilding or even an occupied building, you know, which is potentially dangerous. But and then bird feeders, they definitely get into those bird feeders and on down the line. So we captured 17 bears statewide again as a response to these conflicts. And about half and half were either removed or relocated. Grizzly bears, again, the vast majority of conflicts are bears killing cattle. And this is kind of interesting, remember this for later when I talk about the jurisdiction. But we do definitely have grizzly bears also getting into bird seed, you know, unoccupied buildings. We've done a lot of work to secure garbage and other attractants in areas where there's high densities of grizzly bears. So that number keeps going down. It used to be pretty high, but yeah, we definitely have fewer garbage conflicts than we have recently. So 23 management captures of grizzly bears. And again, I got to reiterate that when we do catch grizzly bears, the ultimate management decision to either relocate or remove that is the authority of the Fish and Wildlife Service. We make a recommendation and then through some discussions again with local folks and then to what they call the conflict coordinator for the Fish and Wildlife Service, that decision is made. So we killed 14 grizzly bears. As a result of that, 6 of which were outside the demographic monitoring area that Dan spoke about. And we relocated 9 different grizzly bears. So relatively, you know, low number. That's still a lot of work, but relatively low number of captures this year, which is again good. Excuse me, last year. So here's this conflict breakdown by jurisdiction. One thing I wanted to point out is grizzly bears on a statewide basis, you know, occupy the least amount of Wyoming. But we have the majority of our trophy game conflicts are by grizzly bears. And the majority of conflicts that occur with all animals is still on private land. So that's another reason why our program is so important. Because, yeah, a lot of this happens on forest allotments and different things. But most of our conflicts with these critters are happening on people's private lands, whether it's a calf being killed in their pasture, you know, a horse being killed in the corral, or a bear on their front porch. It's happening on their private land. And we know how valuable, again, most of these ag lands are. And so a good response program is extremely important to these folks, and having good relationships with them, I think, helps us long term. So what is it that drives these annual numbers? Of course, the social tolerance does that. And that's one thing we're trying to promote by a good field response program. There's no doubt that, let's take, for example, a mountain lion injures somebody in a community. The number of calls about mountain lions skyrocket within a short time frame after that, within that community. We do have to investigate those. A lot of them, they may or may not be bona fide conflicts. They may or may not even be really a mountain lion. But in areas where, let's say you haven't had a conflict with a bear for years, bear comes in, knocks over your bird feeder, maybe another situation, tips over a garbage can, may not even be reported. But if we've had significant numbers of conflicts, especially if there's been some negative human interactions, those will be reported. Everything's reported, every sighting, every conflict. And so this social tolerance in a given area really has a huge influence on the number of conflicts that we have to respond to in a given year. Obviously, the abundance of natural foods has a huge impact. If the bears don't have, or any critter, doesn't have a lot of natural foods out there, they're gonna seek out foods elsewhere. And then down to the bottom, the population demographics are very correlated with that abundance of natural foods. I'll try to explain that the best I can. So bears, for example, are omnivorous, which means they'll eat anything they can catch, find, steal, scavenge, they will eat, okay? And so when one food source is low, for example, in this picture, berries, okay? So what? They're gonna food switch. They're gonna find something else to eat. When white bark pine is low, they're gonna find something else to eat. If cutthroat trout, are low, they're gonna find something else to eat. Not a big deal. But the population demographics then come into play here. When you have bears occupying lands, for example, that are historically used by humans, have high human use, they're more developed, more human populated, that food switching isn't quite as easy. So what do they switch to? What's available? Yeah, garbage, bird seed, whatever the case may be, livestock. And so those two are very highly correlated in the reflection of the annual variation in conflicts that we see. So our field response program, we focus on prevention. I know I beat this and I beat this and I beat this, but it is so important. And the information and education programs, which Dan's gonna cover our bear wife stuff later, in just a few minutes, is so important. It's one of the most important things we do, but it's the hardest to measure. Securing of attractants, is a good way to prevent, of course, all these conflicts. And then we get into the management of individual animals. We're often reactionary, again, to a call of conflict, which includes maybe aversive conditioning. And I threw in there securing attractants also, because like in an example here, conflict has already occurred. We can't secure the dumpster necessarily with whatever means. So we remove that attractant, which is securing it in one way. It's a black bear that was getting into this trash, for example, and it was late in the fall. So might as well secure that, let that bear go on about his way. If he's going to continue to maybe be bold around people, that's a bear that's potentially available for harvest by somebody. So that's definitely managing that animal in a given way. But then we can get hands-on, relocate or remove animals. I'll talk about how our compensation program is actually part of our field response program as well. So again, we do focus on prevention. I can't say enough about electric fences. It works. Electric fences, there's so many different variations, techniques, methods, types of fences that we can put up. You can put them around grain sheds, garbage cans, beehives, around livestock. You name it. You can put an electric fence around camps. They're so versatile and they work. I'm such a huge proponent of keeping mostly bears, but all critters out of trouble and from causing property damage and human safety issues with electric fences. So I have to put a little word in for, we have nickel and dimed trying to put up electric fences, lend them to producers, especially, apiaries and whatnot for bee producers. And we've always been scratching the bottom of the barrel looking for money and ways to get these things electrified. Because when a bear gets into the hives, as most of you probably know, it's some significant damage. It's not something they routinely check every single day. You know, it's not in their front yard. It may be a month before a beekeeper has the opportunity to go back and check his hives. You know, they just let the bees do their thing. And if a bear's got in there, they can cause very, very significant, it can be a total loss of the yard in short order. So prevention of that is very important. And so there was a congressional allocation of significant funding to wildlife services for non-lethal preventative techniques. Again, granted to wildlife services, for whatever they could kind of come up with, they call it non-lethal money, to prevent conflicts like this from occurring. So we purchased, I don't know how many miles and how many, you know, we put up thousands of miles of electric fence over the years, but, significant contribution from that source of funding through wildlife services to put up electric fences. And, it's been a huge benefit. Like, for example, right around Lander, and Riverton and DuBois, where I spend most of my time dealing with conflicts, we've had almost zero, you know, hive damage in the last 4 years since we've started working with this program. So definite huge benefit there. That's been very nice. Another wonderful thing that we get to do, is speak to folks from all age groups, all different kinds of folks. Here's an example of working with kids, and you see the smile on their faces. They like that. So we recently were able to get into a partnership, and all the funding came through Safari Club International Foundation and the Bear Foundation, Joe Condelis, and I think Maria Davidson is here from the Safari Club International Foundation. They bought this really cool kind of remote control bear, okay, and the trailer and everything, and it's full of educational materials, and we can take it. Again, we can give, you know, pretty, I guess, advanced training to maybe land management agencies, even local law enforcement agencies, and we can give basic training to kids like this. It's really neat. So this bear is on a remote control, and we can charge it at the kids, and they can practice spraying inert bear spray and things. And the whole idea is then you got this captive audience that you can really give good educational messages to. So it's been fantastic. It's been great. So again, securing garbage, another huge effort that we have. All these were old garbage, bear-proof or bear-resistant garbage containers that they pulled out of some Forest Service campgrounds. And they said, "Do you need these things?" And I said, "Absolutely, we can sure use them." "Well, we'll just give them to you if you want them." So they dropped them off at the Game and Fish one day. And he said, "Yeah, use them if you can." And anyway, the Forest Service guy calls me that night and he says, "I may not have been able to give those away. Can you hold on to them for a day or two?" And I said, "Too bad. I already gave them all away. If you give me anything that's bear proof, I'll give it away. It's gone. Don't expect to see it again." So we have a high need for this, a high use, but no, it worked out really well. And we continue to do that. So securing garbage, big way to prevent conflicts. Additional prevention, you know, roadside bears in and of itself isn't necessarily a conflict. It wouldn't fall into our definition of a conflict, but the potential for roadkill bears, and the traffic hazards that they create, and the potential for, frankly, humans becoming involved in some sort of crash are very high. The habituation of bears does occur in these situations. So the potential for conflict is very, very, very high. So this is an area where we really focus a lot of preventative methods to try to promote ethical viewing of wildlife. It's great that we get to see these critters, you know, just driving from point A to point B in Wyoming. It's whether it's a moose or a family group of grizzly bears, it's really fantastic that we have the opportunity to do it. But we also have the responsibility to do it ethically. So we put a lot of effort, a lot of focus on managing that potential conflict. So Our compensation program, like I mentioned earlier, is actually part of our field response program. So for example, I'll throw out in the spring, we verify, or early in the summer, excuse me, a producer just gets up on his forced allotment and starts having a little bit of damage, bears, wolves, whatever, killing their livestock. We're gonna do something, okay? We're not just gonna ride it out all year and pay them at the end and say, well, sorry about your loss. However, it can be used as a technique. Let's say they're on their way out off the allotment in the fall. They only got a couple days left. And they got a black bear killing sheep or something, for example. You know, we could maybe let that bear ride, given the circumstances. I mean, not try to trap that bear, not try to do any control action. That bear's potentially available for harvest. And the animals are being removed from the allotment within a day or two. Our compensation program will cover the losses that they've had. So it's definitely part of that. I could talk all day about our compensation program. It is one of the most liberal compensation programs in the world. There's no doubt. We'll see what Colorado comes up with, as they're developing some of their stuff in response to the wolf reintroduction down there, but it's a very good program. I'll leave it at that. So based on that, we do have a standard, and this is a legal standard. It's called more likely than not. Was it more likely than not that a trophy game animal caused this damage, whether it's to livestock, whether it's to whatever we're dealing with, that we're responsible for compensation? For example, on the left, after our pretty thorough investigation, yes, more likely than not, that calf was killed by a bear in that case. The one on the right, no, actually, after our investigation, that llama was not, more likely than not injured by a trophy game animal. It happened to be dogs, domestic dogs in that case. So that's just our standard, but it is pretty liberal. It gives benefit of the doubt to the producer. We definitely consider that. So when all of our options are exhausted, we get to the point where, yeah, we have to capture the animal. We may relocate them, again, if that's applicable. Oftentimes it's not, so they got to be removed from the population. Again, with grizzly bears, those decisions are made by the Fish and Wildlife Service. We do a lot of training within our conflict section. One of them includes our predator attack training. We have some guidelines, and we have basically set it up to where any wildlife attack on a human, let's say a moose, stomp somebody walking down the trail in the park, this would be applicable in that situation, but obviously we're dealing more with, a grizzly bear attack somebody hiking or hunting in the woods, which is interesting. I got to throw a little, one of my opinion out on, hunters often get a bad rap for, we do have a high number of conflicts with grizzly bears when the individual is engaged in the activity of hunting, and it kind of gives hunting a bad name. Well, a grizzly bear doesn't know if a person's walking through the woods, whether he's picking mushrooms or he's hunting. They don't know. It's a person walking through the woods. So when you hear statistics like that, I guess my only thing is to put that into perspective, try to understand the background of what we're dealing with. So anyway, we do a lot of work with local law enforcement. This was one we did last spring in Saratoga, with their, we had their police, and then of course we had the sheriff's department and game and fish folks involved, doing some training on how our predator attack team responds to those type of investigations. This year, we were lucky. We only had one human injury from a trophy game animal, and it was from a grizzly bear. Basically, a gentleman was hiking in a, non-developed, non-trail area up through the woods and, in a small patch of thick timber, and just encountered a bear that was sleeping in there, and the bear attacked him, and he instantly dropped to the ground, basically played dead. The bear bit him a couple times, as you can see right there, and then the bear fled. So it worked. He played dead. He was slightly injured. He's able to walk out and call. And anyway, so no fatalities, which is excellent. I'd love to report that. We did have 3 situations where grizzly bears were killed in self-defense shootings, and those are still currently under investigation by the Fish and Wildlife Service. So again, more training. CEW is conductive electrical weapon, or more commonly referred to as tasers. And one of the trainings that and let me, I guess, clarify, we don't carry tasers as law enforcement. It's strictly for wildlife control in a number of ways. One is aversive conditioning. Let's say a bear's hanging out under a porch where he shouldn't be, thinking about maybe denning there in the fall. And if we can electrify him, basically that aversive stimulus, and they flee, really good success with those animals not coming back. Aversive conditioning. Another one is like entanglement for all kinds of wildlife. Like, let's say a moose gets tangled in a badminton net. We used to go in there, we drug the animal, they go to sleep. There's the whole host of variables associated with potentially dangerous to the animal and to people when you drug an animal. And you gotta wait for them to wake up. Then maybe you gotta move them, you gotta load them in a horse trailer, the whole works. It's a process. Well, we can go in there in a situation and maybe subdue that animal with the electricity, put them down. Somebody can hop in there real quick, cut that badminton net off, and they can be on their way within 30 seconds. It's over. Very clean, very effective way. That's what we're using these things for. Mountain lion accidentally caught in a leg hold for a bobcat. Again, we used to have to either try to get some catch poles in there, maybe drug the animal. It's a long, drawn out process. Literally, game warden in Du Bois, Brian Baker and Zach Gregory had an excellent one last year. They go in there with the trapper, they use the taser on the animal, and when he was electrified, they ripped the trap off its foot real fast, and it was only down like 7 seconds. Incapacitated for like 7 seconds, popped up, ran off, perfectly healthy. Quick, nice, easy way to do it. So that's why we use them. It's not for law enforcement. It's just another tool. Drugging works. Catch poles, lots of people. That works. We've used it for decades. This is just another tool that if the situation warrants, we can use things like that. But it does require a lot of training, especially with, we got a lot of new game wardens coming on, as you folks are aware, lots of turnover. So lots of training that we have to do. We include our local law enforcement in a lot of training because take, for example, some of our smaller towns, we've got 1 game warden and 3 deputy sheriffs. That's who's there. So a lot of those folks are going to be doing similar roles when it comes to wildlife management. And so we include them in a lot of our training, and it's been really beneficial. So social media is, again, not a conflict. A lot of this has to do with roadside bears and bear viewing. It's becoming a new challenge that we're seeing. It's very daunting. It's because of all the false perceptions of state management that are out there. If I had a dime for every time I saw in the newspaper or on some social media blurb that grizzly bear expert so-and-so says this, I don't know what, these self-proclaimed experts on all sorts of wildlife is pretty amazing, Also, I've probably forgotten more about grizzly bears than a lot of those folks know, and I'm still not an expert. So We're constantly addressing that misinformation that's out there, everything to do with wildlife. And it's almost like we're coming full circle, you know? I mean, we had Yellowstone grizzly bears that were being fed at the dumps and bear viewing sites and the picnic areas, they called them. And all these habituated food condition bears were a bad thing. They shut them down, had all these conflicts with bears. And so they got listed. Really quick history lesson here. They got listed on the endangered species list. Well, all these protections came into place, all these management plans, everything that's going on. We're back full circle now to where people, they're short-sighted and they think all these habituated food condition bears that you can just see on a regular basis is a good thing. And that's not necessarily the case. That's kind of got us to where we are in the first place. So we need to maybe take some history lessons of where we've been and not repeat some negative things that have happened in history. So in summary, you know, these conflicts are pretty steady in Wyoming, and that's because of the vigilant personnel and the cooperation we have with public and other agencies, and the support from our own department, despite the increasing numbers and distribution of these large carnivores and the high public interest and the political arena that we deal with. So it's the people that have really contributed to keeping kind of a steady number of conflicts over time. So that's all I have for you. I will turn it back over to Dan and be available for any questions that you may have.
I'm just very surprised that the term badminton was used twice in a talk about carnivores. That was impressive. we always like to end up talking about our Bear Wise Wyoming program. It's something that's grown and it's been in place for a long time, but it's not specific to bears, but a lot of the work is with bears, and that's how it was started. I like to remind people that the notion of an actual Bear Wise program, community program, has been around since 2005. It actually started in the Wapiti area in Commissioner Lundahl's district, developed area, Jackson, Pinedale, Lander. More recently, when a particular bear made a sojourn south to Jackson, a lot of people wanted to start Bear Wise programs. And we said, well, we've actually had one for over a decade. And so it's a good reminder to people. One thing we try to maintain is consistency with different jurisdictions, different states, different agencies. And so, yeah, again, this was in 2005. We were talking about the last 6 years, those programs that were developed. So it's just a good reminder they've been around for a while. I'll run through a few examples of this year and what we're going to plan for the future. Brian talked about the electric fencing. We do a lot of fencing. It really works very well. That team approach with Wildlife Services has been extremely beneficial to find some more permanent solutions to some of these situations with, again, everybody's a chicken farmer, right? I've got chickens too. But making sure that there was years we'd go and temporarily put up a fence where now that there was some more infrastructure and funding, we could put up permanent fences around those. The carcass management program, which we fund through grant money and through commission dollars, is very important in Park County, where we're taking carcasses off of a dead pit or the landscape so they don't draw a grizzly bear in. A bear eating a dead thing is not a conflict again, but if it stays in an area, that could be an issue. That's something we've done for multiple years. There's multiple slides worth of outreach that we do and that other people do within the agency. You know, we quantify that. The communications division does that annually. But you know, we're always looking for new ways to reach the public. Some of us are older and not social media and internet savvy, but we have a lot of diversity within our section that can look at these things. I'm going to talk about our Bear Wise coordinator, some of the things he's working on. But just an example, some of the things we've done, the University of Wyoming Basketball Education Day, Mule Deer Days. You wouldn't expect maybe the carnivore component to be there, but it was very well received last year, despite the weather. I was talking to Josh Coursey this morning, remembering like last year at this time frame when Mule Deer Days happened when we were all stuck in Rock Springs. But again, there's just a lot of things. Wyoming Outdoor Weekend, we do this really cool bear trail with the kids where we create a fake deer kill and walk them through it, and they show them telemetry and things like that. And then, of course, I believe the Nish is going to be talking about the website, one of the things that was very important to us to make sure we had a very good interactive Bearwise website. It's something that gets a lot of interest. And bear spray giveaways galore. American Bear Foundation, Safari Club International Foundation. I think Maria Davidson's in the room. They've really stepped up to buy a lot of bear spray. And we've actually got one coming up this week in DuBois and also one in Lander on Saturday. DuBois Friday and Lander Saturday. And I've got a short video. This is a Safari Club video, but if you could click on that, Wayne, it's about a minute-long video to show.
So this project is more of an effort to educate the public rather than just give out free bear spray. That's not in and of itself going to prevent bear conflicts. A lot of folks do carry bear spray and probably don't even know how to use it.
State and federal agencies are oftentimes hard-pressed to come up with resources to put on events like this at a moment's notice. And so when they reach out to organizations like Safari Club International Foundation, and we can pull together other partnerships to come up with funds to buy bear spray, inert cans, and the charging bear simulator, and put on things like that. It's really important to farm those partnerships and bring things together to support the agencies that manage our wildlife that, frankly, we all want to enjoy in our own ways.
So the Wyoming Game and Fish Department is always pursuing ways to promote education with bear safety. Safari Club International Foundation and the Campfire Conservation Fund and the American Bear Foundation stepped up in this particular effort to provide cans of bear spray, which, you know, frankly, we just can't afford, we can't do. And so that partnership with those groups is key to our effort in promoting bear safety. And in this case, mostly for hunters, which are the biggest conservationists that we have right now in promoting safety and avoiding conflict with bears. And as the number of bears and the number of people using the landscape increases, this is becoming more and more important every year.
That gives a good view of how fast that bear moves. I mean, we had it in DuBois and there was traffic and we were kind of racing traffic. We figured it went about 30 miles an hour. And like Brian mentioned, people really get flustered with that when they have to turn, and you see them, they fumble with that safety. And so at those events, and you saw that in the video.
So this project.
And that video, there you go. It's not just us too. We bring in fisheries people, we bring in the local biologists. And so you get 100 people, well, more than 100 people that show up for those, but it's also a chance to interact and talk about things. You know, everybody's always interested in fishing, so we make sure we have some fisheries guys there. It's a good chance to interact with the public, which is important. Some of the things on the horizon, again, electric fencing. You've heard us talk about bears and corn mazes, a situation in Park County. We're working with multiple funding partners to try to basically put a permanent solution to these bears and those corn mazes. It's hard to fence out all the corn in Park County, but we can fence out these areas that, working with the producer, Mr. Gallagher has been really good to work with and his family. We can fence out those areas that there's a potential human safety. And I will tell you, it's not fun dealing with, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest in cornfields. Children of the corn was what scared me. And then imagine grizzly bears in the corn too. It's pretty real when you're there and have a bear caught and there's other ones wandering around. So that's something we're excited we're working on. So Mark Otten is our new Bearwise coordinator. He really brings some exciting ideas, things that we hadn't thought about in the past. You've seen those when you come out of the Jackson Airport. I just flew out of there and they have these billboards and they show bears and everything. We're going to have game and fish people on some of those. We're working on a virtual reality simulator that's used by the military to project a bear coming at you realistically and how you use spray. And one thing that Mark came up with, it's not everywhere in Wyoming, but those, when you get at the gas pump, they've got the little videos that usually has the one Tonight Show guy or whatever on it. But we have the opportunity to work with them potentially and put Bearwise messaging from Wyoming Game and Fish on those gas pumps. And it's actually, you can target it during different times of the year, change the message. We're pretty excited about that outreach, especially for tourists coming in, people that don't really realize the reality and the importance of that safety. And then just more gratuitous pictures of us working with kids and things like that. These are some of the more permanent solutions to some fruit trees and some chicken hives, gardens, things like that. We do a lot of fencing and so that's important. And I'm on the second to last slide. Again, we're committed to maintaining this approach that we have and managing these populations. We definitely support the management of these species and the long-term ever-changing dynamics of wildlife in Wyoming. And we're at this time in the world where things are changing quickly. That conflict resolution monitoring, the outreach, again, they all are interactive and they're intricately woven together to better understand these species. And we'll continue to answer the questions. Right now, working in this area, didn't talk about it as much, but the Upper Green, we have a lot of conflicts with grizzly bears and livestock. Clint Atkinson, who is here, and Ken Mills and Kesley Seacrest, who are here, are the people that are on the ground up there. We're working with the producers and with the university to develop a way to test some flashy ear tags as a deterrent, building on Clint's work in the past. And so we'll probably be coming to you in the future within a year or so to try to finalize that. So it's something we can look. I mean, having something on an animal to another approach to deter that conflict potential is something we're excited about. That's just one example. And that is all I have for you. We have for you.
Thank you, Dan and Brian. Very informative presentation and as usual.
Mr. President, just real quick, if you'd like, could. I encourage everybody to really look in this Upper Green River, what they're doing up there with these conflicts. It's unbelievable. And I encourage the commission to really kind of lock into it because it's a real big problem up there. And I think that they've got some really good ideas going. So I would encourage us to make sure we move that forward. Thanks.
Especially if you're good at skinning calves, you can, if you want to help with that.
Mr. President, Dan, large carnivore presentations are always my favorite. I'm amazed you can tase an animal and do a quick release, or that's fascinating. I didn't know that was possible. That's really cool. Something in your lion population study data that you're starting to get back that went over fast that caught my eye was that early data that's showing that older lions prey predominantly on elk. And we heard it yesterday. We hear it almost in every public setting about how if we're going to have deer, we've got to address predators. And while there's a component to that, I think there's layers of management that you're starting to find that I'm anxious for you to bring forward, where we might be shooting ourselves in the left foot to save the right foot.
Right.
When we're targeting so heavy on predators.
Yeah, and I thank President Ladwig, members of the commission, Commissioner Brokaw. It is something. I mean, this is something mountain lions have been working on for more than 20 years. And I've always been up in front of you promoting or justifying increased harvest limits, and many times it's more for opportunity, but it is something we're diving into right now. And we luckily we have the benefit of having focal herd data, cost-specific mortality data, and also lion harvest and what's going on with those populations to try to look at that more closely. The situation last year in the Wyoming range was much different. We had a suppressed deer population. We definitely heard from the public. We increased the harvest on a temporary basis because of that. But you've also heard us talk about stability. Maintaining some stability in a population maintains those animals that target on elk too. So yeah, it's not easy, but that is definitely part of the component. I mean, last year in Torrington, the discussion on elk and deer and predators kept coming up. I mean, we started thinking about these things and seeing that relationship through time. We know that animals can be individualistic in what they eat, but seeing that switch to elk, and they're going to eat what's there, right?
Sure.
It's something exciting for us to continue to look at to bring back to you more.
Yep, that's fascinating. I'll be anxious to see how that data continues to flush out. Really interesting.
Anybody else?
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we'll go on with Chris Barnes from the Wildlife Fund. McBarnes. Morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning, Mr. President. Congratulations on your appointment. Commissioner Brokaw, thank you for a wonderful tenure as president on the commission. We've really enjoyed having you be a part of the Wildlife Fund during that time. Mr. Director, members of the commission, honored to be here this morning. My name's Chris McBarnes. I'm president of the Wildlife Fund. I always love to recognize when our board members take time to come to these meetings. Penelope Maldonado, thank you, Penny, for being here, and your wonderful heart and smile and your love for Wyoming's wildlife. So happy to have you be a part of the fund. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get into I think an announcement that's going to really start something monumental here in Wyoming. I've been excited for months about this, to get in front of you folks and make this announcement. Our Inspire Kid Camps are happening right up the road in Bondurant at the Little Jenny Ranch, June 17th through the 22nd for girls, ages 12 to 15, and the 24th through the 29th for boys, ages 12 to 15. If anyone out there knows of a young kid who could enjoy and benefit from a wilderness experience with leadership development packed in outdoor recreation, please go to our Facebook page, the Wildlife Fund Facebook page, WY. Our application process is right there. Applications are due next Friday, the 22nd. We're really trying to pack camp with 25 kiddos in each camp this year. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, we are in Pinedale, the home of Wind River Brewery. I do want to thank them for the Pronghorn Pilsner. That continues to do very, very well. I think our volume is going to increase dramatically this summer, which is going to do that much more for wildlife. So if you're here tonight, please enjoy a Pronghorn Pilsner responsibly. 21 means 21. Do not drink and drive. Do not be that person. But we are very, very grateful for Wind River Brewery and what they're doing through our signature initiative, Wildlife for Tomorrow. So I'm here today to talk to you about a fiery passion that a couple has by the name of Rich and Mary Genzel, who are here in the room, wonderful individuals, for this critter on the screen here, the pronghorn, the fastest land mammal in North America. You know, my son, he's 2.5, Lincoln, and we love going on drives. We go on this loop around the HF Bar, Johnson Creek Road, Rock Creek Road, and we look for critters, and he loves seeing pronghorn. Daddy, pronghorn, daddy, pronghorn. The kid loves them. You know, I think it's very appropriate that we're going to make this announcement today in Pinedale based upon the dynamics that have occurred over the past year and a half. I remember driving the LaBarge country this time last year, Pinedale, looking out through the sagebrush, just seeing what looked like dozens of cotton balls, and they were dead pronghorn, belly up. And it was just tragic. And so, to kind of set the stage, let's talk about pronghorn in Wyoming. Commissioner Masterson, I made sure, I'm a good master student, I made sure to cite all my sources. That's the one thing I have not done well in the past. I'm citing all my sources here. So the first scientific description of the pronghorn came from the journey of Lewis and Clark in 1804. Clark gathered the first pronghorn and called it a buck goat. And at one time, there was an estimated 512,000 pronghorn in Wyoming. This compared to an estimated 508,000 human residents. Today, you know, I read a great article in the Wyoming Wildlife Magazine. Man, we're lucky to have that publication. Nish and her team just do a wonderful job. And Director Nesvik was quoted as saying there's an approximate 380,000 pronghorn in Wyoming today, but we are still the home to the largest population of pronghorn in North America. That's a really big deal. Wyoming is pronghorn. Pronghorn are Wyoming. We need to celebrate these critters, and we need to do everything we can for them and really flaunt it as a state, to be quite frank. This was a really cool photo I found just tying in the historical and cultural roots of pronghorn in Wyoming. This is a hunter and their bucks in 1930s, pulled from the American Heritage Center, University of Wyoming. So talk about opportunities moving forward of how we can impact pronghorn in a positive way. Pronghorn productivity has declined significantly across 43%, 17 of 40 of pronghorn herd units in Wyoming between 84 and 2019. We all know last winter was devastating. Roughly 90% of the pronghorn that migrate to the northernmost segments in and near Grand Teton died last winter. And in one red desert pronghorn unit, 14 of 33 collared animals died in January 2023 alone. Some incredible research, I think, has come out from Sawyer and Tellander here recently that shows, based on movement data, there's an estimated 104,000 acres of good habitat in the Red Desert that's completely blocked for pronghorn use due to fencing. 104,000 acres, those yellow blocks. So this is something, based on the announcement I'm making today and other things the Wildlife Fund is doing, we're going to double down on this and really work to unlock this habitat in the Red Desert for pronghorns. I think it's one of the most important things we can be doing for those critters in that part of the world. So I am honored today, and I'm so excited to announce that the Pronghorn Fund is being launched within the Wildlife Fund. And this is a permanently endowed fund to support Wyoming's pronghorn. And it's cool because the way you all set the Wildlife Fund up was, it's a home for all people who love wildlife, no matter what critter you have a passion for. And so it's the Wildlife Fund doing what we were created to do. And in this instance, it's for pronghorn. And there are so many amazing NGOs in this state that are doing so many things for certain critters. They focus on them. The Wildlife Fund, with this announcement, we want to say, if you love pronghorn and you want to help pronghorn, we now have a structured model within our organization that has been seeded to help these critters in the state. So if you love pronghorn, come to the Wildlife Fund. We will help you put those dollars on the ground for pronghorn. So the Pronghorn Fund, it's going to focus on corridors, habitat restoration, fencing solution, education programs, wildlife crossings, sustainable agriculture, and more. And so to launch this, Rich and Mary Genzel, amazing individuals with such giving hearts, are announcing an initial gift of $350,000 to seed this fund, with more on the way. Rich's best attribute is Mary. I'll be honest with you. You won't find a bigger Cowpokes fan as a couple than Rich and Mary. I enjoyed the Border Wars game against CSU there in Laramie here a couple months ago, which was super exciting. And they are dyed in the wool Wyoming folks. And so let me tell you a little bit about Rich. I'm going to have him come up here and share why this is important to himself and his wife. Rich, he was inducted in the Wyoming Outdoor Hall of Fame. He's from Laramie, he and Mary. He's a retired game and fish biologist, and he worked for the department for 27 years, so had an incredible career with you folks. And in collaboration with Dr. Bruce Johnson, Dr. Fred Lindsay, and Mr. Fred Reed, Rich helped develop and implement an aerial line transect technique to more accurately estimate pronghorn populations. Really big deal. And interestingly enough, Rich was the first biologist in Wyoming to capture a pronghorn using a net gun from a helicopter. I think that's pretty neat. And he's also helped develop systems to record data from aerial operations and advised researchers on adapting distance sampling to aerial surveys around the world, and with species ranging from elephants to marsh deer to free-ranging horses and burros in nearshore pelagic fisheries. And his work on pronghorn has been acknowledged with many awards, including induction into the Pronghorn Hall of Fame in 2010, along with his recent induction in the Wyoming Outdoor Hall of Fame. So at this time, Rich, I'd love to invite you to the mic, and let's give Rich and Mary a huge round of applause. Thank you, Rich.
Well, thank you very much. As you know, I'm passionate about pronghorn, and we have personally benefited from my grandfather's oil and gas explorations in Sublette County. And so when we got our inheritance, we had some money that we wanted to put back into pronghorn, and we had no good location to put that fund yet. And so we put in a donor advised fund and held it there, looking for where's the best place for this money to go that will be effective and targeted towards pronghorn. And fortunately, the Wildlife Fund exists. You know, there's other funds for bighorn sheep, mule deer, things like that. Pronghorn, which are, you know, kind of emblematic of Wyoming in a lot of different ways. There really wasn't anything targeted. If you wanted to get a fund, you had to go through a general wildlife fund or some other thing to do that. But in pronghorn, for many years, the management costs are less than what we would get back in income. And so Pronghorn Management has helped fund lots of other programs in the state. So that was our goal. The Wildlife Fund has given us a mechanism to do this. We're just one family. We're going to do what we can. We'll add to it. We really hope that other people will join in that like Pronghorn and want to see it thrive. We can't take them for granted anymore. We're going to have to be a little bit more taking care of the species. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to kick that off because Pronghorn have been great to me. Time to give back. Thank you.
Just,
I'm sorry, Chris,
oh,
sorry, Mr. President, I can't help. Rich and Mary, I, that's just remarkable of you. That's touching and amazing. And you are the essence of what this state is about. And thank you so much. You're leaving a legacy that will last forever. Thank you.
that.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
very much.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, Commissioner Masterson. Thank you so much. So with this incredible initial gift, we're going to push forward. This is just the beginning. We want to get to $500,000 before we start doing annual RFPs and receive applications, which will be vetted and ultimately approved by the Wildlife Fund Board of Directors. So if you're interested in learning how to give, please reach out to me at the Wildlife Fund. And here's the thing I want people to realize too. Nonprofits, we love cash. Cash is good, but at times it can be a very inefficient way to donate to a charity. And there's a lot of intricacies in tax laws that allow you to work with physical assets, which is the great majority of wealth in the world, to provide more income for your family, to reduce capital gains taxes, et cetera. So we'd like to work with you on that. The Wildlife Fund has the resources to step you through that process to make a very efficient gift that can be beneficial for your family, and everybody will win except the IRS. And it's okay if I get audited for saying that. That's okay. So here are my sources. And again, thank you, Rich and Mary. You guys are wonderful. I appreciate you. And I stand for any questions.
Anybody have anything for Chris?
Okay.
Thank you, Chris,
Okay.
for everything that you do for the wildlife of Wyoming. And since you've come here, it's just, you've had a phenomenal run and we hope it continues for many, many years. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Now, next item. Next, I can't do it. All right, we'll go to item number on our schedule of 13 with Jennifer. Licensed selling agent cancellation.
Good morning, Commission President Ladwig, members of the Commission, Director Nesvik. The first agenda item I'm going to present, I'm Jennifer Doring, the License Section Manager for the Game and Fish. The first item I'm going to present is a licensed selling agent cancellation. The cancellation is for We Market in Meeteetse. And they were canceled for failure to pay on in a timely manner. So per Chapter 31 Commission Regulation governing licensed selling agents, the delinquent payment of a licensed selling agent for their monthly payment 3 times in a 12-month period can be grounds for cancellation. And so We Market of Meeteetse had 3 late payments in 2023. So the first one was their August payment, their November payment, and their December payment of 2023. And so at that point, we reached out, prior Fiscal Division Chief Greg Phipps reached out to Commissioner Ludwall and Deputy Director Kennedy at the time to request to cancel We Market of Meeteetse for that failure to submit payment by the 10th of the month and 3 continuous times in a 12-month period. With that, we received approval from Commissioner Ludwall and Deputy Director Kennedy at the time, and their IPOS terminal was deactivated on December 14th. And we notified the agent per certified letter on December 18th that they were canceled and that they could contest that case. And so we did receive a letter from that agent requesting to have a cancellation hearing in front of the commission. And so that's why I'm here today. In your commission notebook is the letters that the department sent notifying them of those late payments. And you will note in there each time we notify them that if they have 3 continuous late payments in a 12-month period, that can be a reason to cancel them. And those are sent certified and signed off. The 5th attachment in your notebook is the letter that we received from the agent requesting this hearing in front of you today. And I just want to point out that in 2023, they had approximately $30,000 in sales for that agent. And the We Market of Meeteetse is the only agent in Meeteetse. Their closest agent is in Cody. And in Cody, we have 6 agents as well. And so during this time frame, one thing that myself and or the licensed sales accounting coordinator, Josh Moulton, does is when we have late agents, we try and get them to sign up for the electronic payment transfer, the ACH process that pretty much eliminates the need for them to be late. We do the back end work. We debit their account on the 6th of the month, and therefore they're not late. And so each time we try and get them to transition to that process so that they don't have 3 late payments within a 12-month period. And therefore we don't have to cancel them and we don't have to appear in front of the commission. At this time, that agent did just recently sign up for ACH. So if they are reinstated at this commission meeting, they will be signed up for ACH. And with that, I would stand for any questions, but I also do know that the agent, Tangi Linton, is here to speak on behalf of their agent via Zoom.
I don't believe she's here. I believe she's on Zoom.
Commissioner Ladwig, yeah, she's here to attend via Zoom.
Angie, go ahead.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to ask to be reinstated as a licensed agent, not switching to ACH payments was an error in judgment on my part. I had a lot going on in my personal life at the time, as well as other aspects of the business. I've now signed up for the ACH payments, so late payments will not be an issue. This has had an impact on our outdoorsmen in the area, and I feel like it's just in the best interest of the community for you to reinstate our LSA status.
Anybody have any questions for Angie on the commission?
No.
The question I would have, and you can answer that, is the ACH, is that an automatic payment or does it still has to be instituted by the LSA vendor?
Commission President Ladwig, that's an automated process that the department does. So on the 1st of each month, our system generates their invoice. That's the amount they owe the department minus their commissions for their sales for the previous month. That invoice is available to the agents on their terminals. If they're signed up for ACH, we send them an email the first business day we're back, or the 1st. And that email tells them that on the 6th of the month, we are going to debit your account X dollars, whatever that invoice total was. If they have an issue, they can contact us and we can pull that out. And then the next day, or depending on, sometimes we have to do it the same day, just depending on when the days fall, we send that to the bank and the systems automatically debit their account and put it in the state treasurer for the Game and Fish to have. And so it's a very easy way for the agents to make that payment and not be delinquent by the 10th of the month. And that's also why we debit it on the 6th. So they don't have to take any action other than to make sure they have the money in their bank account.
Thank you.
Mr. President, and
Yes.
what's been the past history before 2023? What kind of a track record do they have?
Commission President, Commissioner Roberts, they have been an agent for a long time. In 2022, they had almost $34,500 dollars in sales. I don't know off the top of my head how many payments they had been delinquent, but that 12-month period kind of revolves. So, you know, as we lose 1 month, we gain a month, and they had never been, at the time I've been with the department in this position, they had not been in front of the commission or been, you know, up for that could request for cancellation. And I do know that they do a lot of sales in Meeteetse just because they are the only licensed selling agent in that town.
Thank you. Is there any further information, questions from the commission?
I don't have a question, Mr. President. I have a comment that, in Miss Linton's letter, you get to the third paragraph and she was mailing stuff and things were not, they were late, but they weren't more than 10 days late. And for us in rural Wyoming, our mail system is so, you know, that's not a concern for me at all. And so with the ACH payments in effect now, I would support reinstatement.
Is that a motion to approve?
If there's no more discussion, Mr. President, I would move to reinstate Wee's Market of Meeteetse as a licensed selling agent.
Motion made by Commissioner Brokaw and seconded by Commissioner Jolovich. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. We will get that agent turned back on. It's just kind of a change in the programming. We just changed them back to active, so they will be able to sell licenses again soon. So thank you.
Next item.
Commission President, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. The next agenda item is another cancellation. This one is to the cancellation of City Market number 412 in Rollins. And so same thing applies here. They had 3 late payments within a 12-month period. Those dates were, the letters were dated July of 23, August and September of 23. At that time, once again, we requested from previous Fiscal Division Chief Greg Phipps to work with Deputy Director Kennedy and Commissioner Brokaw to request cancellation of City Market 412 in Rollins. And we received that approval from them, and we suspended their terminal on January 17th of 2024 and notified them January 20th of 2024. At that time, they once again also were not part of the electronic payment process. They were mailing their payments into the department as well. Subsequently, based on the suspension, they have signed up for ACH. And so they will also, if approved, would be on that electronic payment transfer. There are 2 other agents in Rollins, the Buy Right Sporting Goods and Walmart. And at that time, during this time, there was a little bit of disconnect between the current City Market store as they were transitioning to corporate. So I just want to make you aware of that as well. And so when we work with our corporate partners, oftentimes it's a lot of paperwork to get basically the local store manager in their corporate office, which in a lot of these instances, their payments come from their corporate office. And so that transition can be a little more challenging. And a lot of our agents are being bought out by larger corporations, and we are having to work with a lot of those larger corporations to make sure that it's not impacting the local agents. And so I did want to make note of that as well. And so in 2023, City Market in Rollins had almost $37,000 in license selling dollars. And in 2022, they as well had about $43,000 in sales. And I believe there's an agent online as well, who will talk about their cancellation.
Okay. Mr. Pyle?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm here with Becky Diaz and she is with my corporate office and we have signed up for the automatic payment. And the late payments were caused by some of the delays with the switchover we had with the corporate payments. And I'm not sure what else I can say about that, but we are very involved with the community and have received several customer complaints about losing our license. And I have reassured them that I'm working with the Gaming Commission to get that reinstated. And hopefully you reinstate us.
Thank you. And then, hey, everybody, this is Becky Diaz. I'm Director of Operations here at King Soopers. And just to reiterate, from a corporate standpoint, there were changes to our structure more recently around payments, and all of our payments come from another corporate office in the East. And we had some, admittingly, and it's definitely on us, we had challenges with communicating with that group and getting payments on time. And we take that very serious. We understand that we owe it and it's a responsibility of ours to pay it on time. And now that we have ACH in place, you have our commitment and we will have payments on time in the future. And we have connected with that team and we don't anticipate any issues moving forward at all. And we appreciate you guys listening to us today.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question from the commission?
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are they currently up to date on payments?
Commissioner Ledwell, Commissioner Masterson, yes, they are up to date and current. They had paid all of their previous due invoices. And so since their account's been inactivated, they haven't sold anything, but they don't have a balance due.
Mr. President, my question for Jennifer was, you mentioned there's 2 other licensed selling agents in Rollins. Do they all kind of do an equal amount of business through license sales, or is City Market a leader in that community? Where do they rank in that list?
Commissioner President, Commissioner Brokaw, I can't answer that question. I didn't pull those numbers. Historically, our Walmarts do a lot of business, but I do know for Rollins, approximately $40,000 is a substantial amount. And I do believe, as they mentioned, that some of their customers do frequent that store and have probably asked when they're getting their terminals back.
Mr. President, I would just add, it's frustrating, but I understand that our small town businesses are going to the corporate world, and my frustration is my insurance. I used to hand deliver it in Laramie, and now I send it to St. Louis, Missouri. Mail loses it, and I lost my insurance. So they were gracious and granted that back to me. So as we transition this way and we secure our income with ACH, I'm lenient, I'm empathetic to these situations.
Nice. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. President, I'll move that we reinstate status for City Market in Rollins.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Commissioner Bell and the second was made by Commissioner Dolovich. Beat you to it.
Mr. President, I'll support the motion, but I want the licensing department to know that I completely support what you're doing and the path that you are going down and your efforts in this. And for me, don't interpret my vote in any way as critical of what you're doing or the way you're going about doing it. I think you're exactly right. What I see is, what drives it to me is the availability of licenses. I want to see them available as much as possible to, make sure that we're selling to everybody who wants one. So I just want you to know, I appreciate your efforts. I recognize them. And this is not indicative of a lack of support of them. Okay?
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Ask for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. And with the previous one, we will get their terminal turned back on so that they can sell licenses as well.
Next item.
Commission President Ladwig, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. Agenda item 15 is our standard license selling agent request for this commission meeting. So at this commission meeting, I'm requesting the approval of one new sporting goods license selling agent, which is Gold Spur Outfitters in Laramie. The game warden evaluation was included in your packet. There are 10 other agents in Laramie, and Laramie has a total sales of approximately $954,000. This agent was supported by their local game warden. And so with that, you can see their application and their recommendation, and they have signed up, if approved, for ACH payments if they're approved to sell. And so with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the Gold Spur Outfitters as a licensed selling agent.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Bell, seconded by Commissioner Roberts, got it. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next item.
Commission President Ladwig, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. My last agenda item for the day is agenda item 16. And so in the November commission meeting, I brought forth 3 agents who had not met the $1,000 sales in 2023, which is a requirement to have a minimum of $1,000 in sales per Wyoming State Statute 23-1701. As I mentioned at that time, you gave conditional approval to continue to sell if they bonded, and these 3 agents did bond. We have completed our audit of all of their licensed sales and manual book sales and have wrapped up all of the audit for 2023. And with that, at this point in time, I can, what I'm doing is bringing back the licensed selling agents that were presented and conditionally approved at that November commission meeting. So the first one was Shell Campground. At that time, I believe they had $999 and hadn't met the $1,000. After the audit, they did reach that. They had $1,370.50 in sales. So they are in good standing and met that $1,000 minimum sales per Wyoming State statute. The other 2, the first one is Bow River Crossing. They, at the end of the audit, had $799.50. which did not meet that requirement. Bow River Crossing is in Elk Mountain. Their 22 sales were $76. They did have new owners that took over, so we didn't bring them because usually when we transition between a transfer, there's a time delay in when they're up and selling. And so those new owners took over in October of 22. And so at that time, they are the only licensed selling agent in Elk Mountain. Their closest agent is 44 miles away in Saratoga. And in Saratoga, there are 7 other licensed selling agents. At this time, we have reached out and asked if that agent wanted to be heard in front of the commission, and they chose not to. The third agent that was on the list is Alta Convenience 6225 in Green River. And this agent also did not meet the minimum sales, and they had about $200 in sales. And as I mentioned at the November commission meeting, this agent was a previous new agent in 2021. We got them a new terminal. They had a lot of issues getting their new terminal set up in 22 and actually didn't make any sales. They were working with our IT team, our team. They've had a lot of new store manager turnover. And so at that time, when the new store manager came on board in November, when we presented this, I believe it was probably their second or third day of work when we talked to them, and they had gotten the terminal set up and were going to work to sell licenses. And at that time, that's probably why we've had the amount of sales we did have in 2023 for them. When we reached out, that store owner manager had turned over and was no longer there. They do have a new store manager who will be presenting their side via Zoom. But at this point in time, we are asking that the commission either renew these agents or and allow them to continue to sell on behalf of the department. Yeah, so the Ulta convenience store, I believe that gentleman is online.
Right. Sadie?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Sadie Spaney and I am the area sales manager for Alta Convenience in Wyoming. And I have the store manager, Sandy Hodgins, here with me. We have had quite a turnover of management in this store that were not on board with the Game and Fish. Sandy feels like if we get some signage in our store or some kind of something in Green River so that they know that we sell licenses up here, I think our sales and licenses will grow.
Okay, anything else?
I don't think we have anything else. We have 2 other stores in Rock Springs that do quite well with licenses, and I feel like if we have some signage, we could do good in this store also. That's all I have.
Okay, Jennifer, do you have an opinion?
Commission President Ladwig, as she mentioned, they do have 2 other Ulta stores in Rock Springs that do well. Both of these agents have signed up for ACH. And as she mentioned, she has contacted us in regards to signage, and we are working with the communications section to develop new signage that they can hang in their stores to promote at their store that they do sell Wyoming Game and Fish licenses. So I know they've had a rough time trying through that transition of being a new agent when they took over connectivity issues. And at that, I would stand for any questions.
Mr. President, I have a question. So this Green River Alta store has the ACH equipment, has our equipment on site, online, ready to go now.
Commission President, Commissioner Brokaw, that is correct. We hadn't pulled the terminals because you guys had conditionally approved them to continue selling in 2024 at the November commission meeting. And these agents did pay their $50 bond to sell into 2024. It's just a requirement of this when we present that at the November commission meeting that we always follow up and kind of close the loop with the commission and let you guys know the final sales and where we stand on that. But you had given conditional approval for all 3 of these agents to continue selling in 2024 at that November commission meeting.
So the Alta store does have the ACH capability at this time?
Commission President Ladwig, yes, they are signed up for ACH as well as Bow River. Both of those agents who didn't meet the $1,000 are signed up for ACH.
So since our agenda was done, there was a recommendation not to approve. Is that changed?
Commission President Ladwig, we write it as based on the statute that they don't meet the $1,000 requirement. And so I think both of these agents work really hard. I know Bow River has been an agent for quite a while. And so my recommendation is if they don't meet the 1,000, we can always bring them back next year and you can make the decision But at least Elk Mountain is a small community that doesn't have any other licensed selling agents. And even though Green River has 5 other agents, one of them is the regional office who is open different hours. And so I just don't feel like, in my opinion, that they'd been given a fair shot. And based on technicalities of issues they had with their terminals, and their other stores are very successful. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Any further questions from the commission? What's your pleasure?
Mr. President, I'd like to split the two LSAs, and I would make a motion to approve, reinstate, continue the Alta store, whatever the correct word will be, in Green River. That's my motion. Just Green River store.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bill Bell. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion is passed.
Mr. President, I'd like to have some more discussion specific to Bow River Crossing in Elk Mountain. Jennifer, can you tell us who owns it now? Is it Mrs. McKee, or was she the first owner?
Commission President Ladwig, Commissioner Brokaw, it's Janet or Jenny Menike. And so, yeah, she is a more recent agent who took that over. They were the new owners who took over in October of 2022.
I think previously they had an issue with store hours, but I think under this new management, they're doing much more business and their hours are open more. You're right, Elk Mountain is a pretty tiny little spot. But they don't meet the 1,000, so I just wanted to hear more discussion on that. I don't know if they can meet it with the population.
Well, Mr. President, I know it's a requirement, but if we're able to extend their license selling status, I think it's a good idea. I mean, to drive 45 miles back to Saratoga to get your license if you didn't get it. I don't know. I'm okay with it.
Question about the Bow River. Have they ever met the $1,000 threshold in your knowledge?
Commission President Ladwig, Commissioner Masterson, previously, I don't believe they were on this list under the prior owners. I don't believe that I had brought them to the commission as an agent under $1,000, but I can't be 100% certain on that.
Mr. President, I just commentary, something that concerns me is that the Bow River Crossing representatives aren't here. And what swayed me on the Alta convenience store was that the manager and, came and talked to us. That says something to me. I feel like we're kind of being blown off by the Bow River Crossing group. You couldn't, your license is in peril and you couldn't call up and talk to us about it. So that's really swaying me. That's my comment.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I would move to cancel license selling agent Bow River Crossing.
Second? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Bow River Crossing to disapprove, I'm sorry, Bow River Crossing. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed. So disapproved.
So I only heard two votes for aye. I only heard one vote for nay.
Right,
So I'm curious. Yeah, so let's just find out who's voting for. Let's make sure we're
Okay.
on the right page.
Commissioner Masterson,
Voted to, approve the motion.
Roberts,
I voted to approve the motion and cancel.
Commissioner Bell,
I voted nay on that motion.
I voted yay,
to disapprove.
disapprove.
I was a nay, not to cancel.
So we have 4-2. It has been disapproved.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, did we vote on Shell Campground?
Yes,
We did?
We didn't.
Shell Campground.
No, we voted on,
Okay, I made a mistake.
you just did all that, right?
No, we just did
We did Alta and Bow River Crossing.
Original one was Alta that you.
My first motion was to approve Alta. I believe that passed.
Right,
Then we did Bow River.
okay.
Then we
still
did
have
Bow
the-
River Crossing.
We have not done Shell Cramp.
Shell
Bow River
Campground.
Crossing is in Elk Mountain.
Okay, I made a mistake then. I need to change my vote.
So that makes it 3-3.
I thought those were two separate ones.
3-3 on Alta, is that?
No, on Elk Mountain.
No.
Bow River.
Bow River, okay.
Because they're the ones, can I clarify, they're the ones where you have to drive all the way to Saratoga, right?
Yes.
Okay, what did you?
I thought there was an LSA in here. Is there still an LSA in here?
There used to be, but I
I can't. Commissioner Ladwick, Commissioner Brokaw, I do believe that the Nugget did not rebond, but I can't be
I throw on that too.
100% certain.
I agree. I can't confirm that. So I think we should stick with what was presented today, that the next LSA that we know is in good standing would be Saratoga, would be the next closest one.
You have to drive 45 minutes. You know, and you're okay with that. Why did I think we were talking about 3 different ones?
Your vote changed or?
Yeah, I got confused. I apologize. I thought we were talking about 3 separate places.
Okay, so it's still a 3-3?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think let's make sure we have some clarification from my point is is there any way we can re-entertain the motion and count and vote again on the Boat River crossing? So it's clear for everybody on the, I don't know if you know, on the recording, how clear we are, but I just.
So the motion was to disapprove. To cancel. We'll revote.
So an I vote means you're voting to cancel the Bow River
Right.
crossing. That's what an I vote is.
I vote to cancel.
I vote to cancel.
I vote nay, not.
I vote to cancel.
I vote nay, not to cancel.
I vote nay, not to cancel.
I think I'm gonna vote. My vote is because of the recommendation of the department, and I'm gonna vote to let them try another year.
So you're a nay.
I'm a nay.
Okay, so,
Okay, they're approved.
That's 4-3.
well, okay.
No,
Yeah, because that motion failed.
that motion fails. Right, so we need a new motion to approve,
Oh,
right?
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. President, I would make a motion to approve the licensed selling agent for Bow River.
Did you get that, Tony? Okay, this is for the approval of license. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Sounded like 3-2.
4-2.
4-2. So they would get to renew.
But now you gotta do Shell.
Okay,
Now we need to do Shell.
Mr.
That was the Shell campground.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would move to approve the Shell Campground licensed selling agent.
I'll second that. They met us.
Commissioner Bell and Commissioner Jolovich second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, that was a winner.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, Andy, you get your chance now.
Yeah,
Deputy Director Bruce, legislative update.
thank you, President Ladwig, Director Nesvik, Commissioners. I'm going to try to give you a brief overview of the legislative session. It was just 20 days, a budget session. However, it felt very, very long. But to recap a little bit, the end result was minimal impacts on the department, a much wider workload. I think Director Nesvik told me in his 13 years working on the session, this was probably his lightest workload. So I think that says a lot. And the good news is after 20 days, there is a state of Wyoming budget. So that budget still is waiting for governor's signature and any final actions, and that will happen by March 26th. But overall, 353 bills. We tracked 12 of those and we monitored 28. Again, a light session. We testified 9 times. Usually most years it's in the 30s and 40s, so that gives you some perspective. However, there were some bills that had the potential of having a large impact on the department. So I don't want to de-minimize the work that the agency did during this session. So looking at that general fund budget, if you remember, the director worked closely with the governor to have an ask of $20 million for annual invasive species. Prior to the budget session, JAC lowered that to 5 million, where I believe it is now, it's back up to 9. So that's exciting to see, and we'll see where that lands. The other footnote in the budget was a footnote regarding the department spending another $1 million on predator control if approved by the commission. And I believe that footnote still exists. Again, we'll follow up once we see the final budget. But first, I'd like to just spend a little bit of time, the bills that have not been enrolled or did not get enrolled, just to touch on those and refresh your memory. 2 committee bills that came out of TRW where we spent a lot of time during the interim session. House Bill 2, non-resident fishing license increase, and House Bill 17, fishing outfitters and guides, registration for fishing boats. Those 2 bills did not make it past the first day on the floor. However, talking to folks during the interim session topics, we may see those again this summer. The one main bill that took a lot of energy by staff, House Bill 60, excess wildlife damage, population damage amendments. This was for extraordinary damage. As the director talked about in his opening remarks at the commission meeting, that bill did get testified on twice in both chambers, but in the second chamber, second reading, it did not move forward. But as the director said, he's charged an internal team for looking closer at that, and we'll be bringing stuff to you in September. Another one that I wanted to mention was Senate File 111, mule and whitetail deer separate hunting seasons. This bill had a lot of conversation, a lot of amendments. I did want to note too, it seemed to also be a year of amendments. There were a lot on the bills that we had and other bills. Very popular to amend bills this year. But this bill in the second chamber had a lot of discussion. Some amendments were brought forward. The conversation really went towards maybe the value of mule deer versus whitetail. Some of the discussion went there. There was also amendments to lower the whitetail deer license. Lots of concerns over that, and the bill did not move forward. So the bills that have been enrolled, and some of these have not, again, we just ended the session on Friday, so they don't have the governor's signature on them. But one that has is Senate File 60. This is the large project funding by Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust. It occurs every year for projects that are over $400,000 have to go through the legislative process. And this one did. 2 out of the 3 projects were game and fish projects. So we're excited to see that that one went through. The next one, Senate File 109, Prohibit Red Flag Gun Seizure Act. This really prohibits the seizure of ammunition and guns unless the person was convicted of a violent felony crime. We had some concerns regarding the game warden's work within the department and able to seize guns with criminal wildlife violations. We were able to successfully get an amendment on that bill to alleviate our concerns. The next one I wanted to touch on is Senate File 118. This is bighorn and domestic sheep relocation, federal action. So this one really aligns with the director's past work when he developed a letter regarding removal of the bighorn sheep in the Sweetwater Rocks herd area. If a federal action comes into play that has a negative influence on livestock grazing in the area. So this bill also came with a commitment for folks to work with our federal delegation on a federal statute that would be similar to the state one. It also came with $100,000 available from the general fund to be used on monitoring, tracking, and conducting disease surveillance, and for the possible act of removing bighorn sheep in the area as well. I'll just pause there. Director, did you want to add any more on that one?
Yeah, the only thing I guess I'd add is that there still certainly is some concern with regards to a lot of the wool growers, and the wool growers supported this legislation. I want to make sure that's clear, but there are other livestock interests that brought concerns with not having some kind of aligned federal legislation. So we've done some work with the delegation in the past on this and haven't got very far with it, but there is a renewed interest from livestock folks to go and work with the delegation to try to have some mirror federal legislation. So we're not going to be coming to the commission tomorrow with a new recommendation on reintroduction, but this was significant in being able to provide some assurances that have worked in other similar situations in other herds in the state. And so I think it was a really good step forward. And I can tell there was Senator Hicks and Representative Western did all the heavy lifting on this thing. They worked very hard to do this, and met with a lot of the folks that were on both sides of the issue, worked with them very closely, worked with all the conservation groups involved. Jess is in the room. She worked on this as well, as did the wild sheep folks. So I think it's a good step forward, and we're in a better spot than we were before the session on this particular issue.
Good. Thank you, Director. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about, just recognize there were 3 similar bills that was worked on during the interim session that got enrolled regarding state employee retirement fund. One was specific for the game wardens, and one was then for other employees that really focused on the health and longevity of the retirement account, looking at the percent increase that was needed for employee and employers to make sure that happened. And then those short-term bills, but then a long-term statute that allowed for the availability to increase or decrease that percentage with the need over time. And so as Meredith talked to you during the budget overview, she will be adapting the budget to reflect those bills and bringing that to you in the final one. So Director Nesvik also gave you an overview of the interim session topics and what the department proposed. We will hear after the 1st of April what those final interim topics are. The other committees that we usually are present at and testify, doesn't appear at this point that there is anything in the Ag Committee or the Tribal Committee. Those are a couple that we usually sometimes testify. Select Federal Natural Resource Management Committee, I'm imagining that there will be a need there, especially with the federal actions of Rock Springs and Sage Grouse coming out. And then also the Select Water Committee, and water development is one that we keep a close eye on and are involved in. So again, this is an interesting session because usually I give you a recap of what you could expect a lot in the future with implementation of these new statutes. And besides the elk management coming in September and then the funding alteration that Meredith will bring, there's no further action by the commission. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Mr. President, I have a question. A comment, then a question. It seems in a budget session, a short session, wildlife issues, some do need legislation, some don't. It's frustrating to see big wildlife issues come and not get the time they deserve. That trend seems to be happening more with state legislature. Thank you for your diligence and staying on top of those fast-tracked efforts. Question. I was asked just again yesterday, with the new legislation on bighorn sheep reintroduction, the department's position, I'm confirming, is still, we're not going to move any sheep into Sweetwater Rocks until we have some assurances from our federal agencies on what that'll affect, how that might affect those permit holders.
So, Mr. President, I'll go ahead and answer that, Angie. So, Mr. President, Commissioner Brokaw, I would say that the answer to that question, number one, is no sheep are going anywhere with department hands without the commission approving it. That's part of the Wyoming plan. That's part of our standard operating procedure in the department. So that's number one. But we need to reassess where we're at after this legislation's passed with local landowners. I think it's important for the commission to remember the folks that are actually in the area, the management area, are cattle producers. There's a couple of sheep producers that are outside of that area. We need to check back in with those folks before we come to you with the recommendation. And so right now, I wouldn't expect anything at the next meeting, but there is potential over this next several months that you could see us here talking about it.
Okay.
And the other thing that we all know that's important to note here is that in the meantime, sheep could end up there on their own because they're not that far away right now.
Thanks for the clarification, Director.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Nish?
Nish from Game and Fish.
Mike's place.
Overruled by Commissioner Bell. I'm mindful of the time. So I don't know how you're doing on. We've got 4 items left. Didn't go run it, but
Mr. President, Director Nesvik, members of the commission, good morning. My name is Nish Goikolea. I'm the Communications and Education Chief, and today I'm presenting on our comm statistics for the department. This is probably my favorite yearly presentation, one of them anyways, and I'd like to go ahead and start off with a beautiful picture of Flaming Gorge, and that's buckboard. It almost looks tropical or paradise out there, which very exciting. That's ice. Well, we all have different versions of paradise. So. Sorry, let me gather my clicker here. I thought Wayne was doing some new magic. So overall goals for the communication education division with all of our comms is truly, it aligns with our strategic plan for the department. It's to communicate, educate, and improve public relations with current and future prospective stakeholders. We have a variety of communication tools. This is not all of them. These are the main ones I'm going to talk about today. I intentionally left the website off because I'm going to do that in the next round. I will touch on it a little bit, but news media, email, social media, and of course our magazine that I discussed with you last time I presented. So I typically give you the media analytics on a yearly basis, but this year I wanted to look at trends and do a 3 years since we started doing this. And it's really interesting. The first thing I want to show you is that you've seen we've gone up for news releases we've produced. This number in 2023 isn't completely accurate because we did some different things with the media team, and that's where we've been sending out in the Monday news packet multiple articles instead of separate ones. So it might look as a single release, but it could have 4 or 5 articles, or it could just have one in there. So I don't think that number is completely accurate, but the other thing to note is that we've really moved away of some other practices that we used to do. We do not send any news releases on a Friday unless we absolutely have to, if it's in an interest of a regional topic, issue, or for sportsmen that need that info. Otherwise, we steer clear of the end of the week. We do not like to deliver good or bad news typically then. We really focus on the Monday and kind of the big topics at hand. We've also been sending out our news releases with our TV, weekly TV episode as well, our video content, so that we can align that. And something else to know, which we'll go on and see, is that we've been working to send the same information through multiple platforms and channels and tools so that we have a wider spread on the message as well. Social media, I think this is one of the most interesting data slides we have. You'll see there's a real trend here with Facebook kind of going down. That's really common. I have to give a disclaimer. In 2021, we reached 20 million people, and there was about 12 million of those for one single video that we put on social media of elk migration. In fact, I think it was Mr. Goki's that year as well, of the elk migrating down through Jackson. And so that video alone received so much traction that it really messed up my data on this one, but in a real positive way. If you take that number out, you can see that it's been consistently going down. That's a national trend. A lot of people are moving away from Facebook. It's becoming kind of an old platform. Younger generation will even say that they're moving towards more, Snapchat, TikTok, other platforms. So it's kind of common. Instagram, solely pictures. We're also seeing that kind of leveling out and starting to drop. If I was forecasting, I would say that's going to go down next year as well. However, video views are going up and consistently going up. We have there's a lot of interest in really short snippets of information, whether it be short things to read or short videos with content in it. We're talking like 1 to 5 minutes max. And so we're really looking this year at different ways we can bolster our education and communication efforts through video. I did not put Twitter up here. We did not have as much engagement last year with Twitter. They were undergoing some major changes as a platform and became X. There's their symbol there. So it really was kind of a weird year with them. Social media totals overall, though, we have 129,000 fans, followers, subscribers collectively on social media across all of the platforms we put information out. We reached about 9 million people across all of our social media accounts just last year. 399 social media posts. Those were done by us. That doesn't include the posts that the public put on there, the replies, all the engagement there. 1.2 million video views on YouTube videos last year alone, and 29,000 hours of watch time. So people are seeing our things. All of this media analytics that I'm giving you, we acquired a new software last year called Meltwater, and it's a media intelligence software, and it monitors, analyzes, scrapes all of our media just to tell us the numbers, like where we're at, what's really trending, what's the public interested in, where could we do more, where are we maybe struggling a little bit. And so it's been a really useful tool. Again, across the board reach over the 3 years, you can kind of see our reach is still growing. Now, maybe not consistently in some platforms, and maybe it's going down in others, but still growing, still seeing lots of great engagement, new followers and video viewers. Altogether, our overall audience reach is up 10%, and our audience is up 10%, and our reach is up 3%. So good stuff. Email communications, really, really positive. This is probably our most powerful department tool aside from the website. Through our different main email update categories, we reach a lot of people. In the hunting update email, we reached 497,000 last year. Fishing update, 209,000. Wildlife update, 14,000. And our Inspire a Kid email has gone up as well, 4,000. And this is the really, really cool thing is our open rates are as high as 88%. Of course, the highest open rate we have annual is draw results on our email. Our customers love it. They love to get their draw results via email instead of going back through the licensing portal. And so we always find out who accidentally maybe didn't get their email for some reason at that time, and when they want to get back on there. In comparison to industry open rates, industry's really excited when they're within a 1 to 5% range, and their average open rate's 2.66. Government open rates are typically 12 to 20%. So our open rates blow those numbers out of the water. Our stakeholders read what we send them. We're very cautious of what that is. We don't do a lot of marketing, or pretty much any for that matter, because of that. And we have a less than 1% unsubscribe rate. So people don't leave us once they're there.
Are there other game and fish agencies across the country that are similar to that? Like that is it the norm with those kind of departments, or are we just so much better than everybody?
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, I absolutely will say that we are so much better than the rest. To start right there. However, I'm not sure. You know, we don't typically collectively share this kind of information across other agencies in other states. We do track other agencies' YouTube watch. And as of recently, we were like 3rd on the list of top agencies. And so we're really gunning for #1. So when we get there, we'll tell you. But in terms of overall open rates and things like that, I don't really know.
We like the idea of also for anybody, any other state agency, just burying them at that point too, right? Like YDOT, who's that? Anyway.
Onward. So the website and regulations, something really important. I don't want to go too far on the website. I really just wanted to give you the kind of analytics on it. And I solely focused on our regulations page on the website. You'll know that a couple of years ago, we had that paper shortage thing, and there were some people that were very upset about it. We were as well. And so we did put all of our regulations on the website through Nextbook. And so these are last year's numbers. And last year we did print as well. This year we are printing. And we are putting them online and available for download. Last year we implemented a mobile-friendly download option as well. But I think this is really great information to see that even printing and having them on online access, we still saw, 100,000 people opening our big game regulations, or at least some of those are duplicated. We are having a little, trying to figure out that if you're the same person going in there 5 or 6 times, but I mean, it's really great information. And then below, we did kind of a word search. Word cloud is what it's called. What were people looking for when they were searching for information on our website, specifically for regulations? And you'll see the bigger the word, the more often they're looking for it. So deer, elk, fishing licenses, license, preference points, youth, antelope, all kinds of different things in there. So some great information there. So overall website regulations, 1.19 million people typically, are served by our website. I'm really looking forward to the new website coming on and us being able to tell you exactly where they're going and how and what they're most interested in. So hopefully this time next year, I'll be giving you analytics on that. Page views on our website, 14.1 million. 1 million people are on our apply or buy page. And sessions on the hunting page or website, 777,000. So we know that this is a really important resource. We do a lot of communication and engaging with the public here. TV, radio, podcasting, also something we do that's really big. Last year, we produced 52 video news pieces. 208 radio pieces were produced, and that doesn't even count radio interviews that were done by our public information specialists, the media team, or our wardens and biologists. This is just what we put out there. We reached over 215,000 people by radio and TV weekly. We have typically 83,000 views uploaded to YouTube. 7,000 plays on podcasts alone in 2023, the Get Outside podcast that Ray Hageman does for us. And then you'll see how those plays are increasing from 2022 when we started tracking this to 2023. I wanted to put just a couple other items of information requests and how we engage in the public in here that we just started tracking. So public records requests from the last, 4 years. These are the numbers thus far. I put even 2024s, but this is a few weeks old, so that's not an accurate number right now. But public records requests are steadily increasing. We know this. And we want to continue to meet the public's interest in all of our information that we can provide. So we're in the process of acquiring a new software for that. And I think it'll be really exciting. We'll be able to publish reports and do some different things with this information as well to further engage. And then we created a new email address for the whole department last year. WGF@yo.gov, because we found that we have a ton of emails we use in the department for all our different sections and areas, but we didn't have the one overall catch general email, and there was some demand for that. And so last year we received 938 emails through that. So great time. Most of that time we just send those emails to the appropriate person, specialist section, but it's still really great to see how we are further communicating out there. And I'll stand for any questions.
Oh. Nish, I'm curious when we get a public records request, what are we seeing? What are the requests generally for? Just broadly, very broadly speaking.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, it widely varies, and some of them are repeat questions, what is elk license numbers for last year. Licensing questions are very, very common. Some other things that we're seeing through public records requests that are really going up is also different basic information on some of our reports, some of our, what else do I want to say? The director could probably speak better to some of this, but we are reviewing kind of to see what the trends are as a department right now with this public records request and how we can do a better job of being efficient and consistent for those.
Yeah, I will say that every time I think I know about every kind of records request we get a new one that's I've never seen before. But the one thing that is of concern that Nish addressed that I really support is trying to use some software to shorten up our workload, because number one, we need to be efficient in getting back to the public when they ask. I mean, it's a public record, but it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff that we do that we have to be very careful with because it's protected under statute. And so I'm hopeful that this software will help us. We're never going to eliminate a human being having to make judgment calls. We're never going to eliminate the need to have an attorney look at some of our stuff. But I do want to get more efficient at this because it is a time suck for sure.
And Mr. President, following up on that, we're not alone in this. Other state agencies are doing this as well. And in fact, the software that we're in the process of acquiring, we're doing in conjunction with the Department of Corrections. And there's other agencies that are looking to do this as well. This software is supposedly, hopefully, going to help us, eliminate redundancy, help us redact information that is, outlined in statute that we do not want to release, and then also give us some reports back that we can give. And then if it's a common request we're seeing with like some of our licensing requests, we should be able to push it to our website and publish them. So then people don't have to keep asking us for the same report and us duplicating the work. We can have an efficient way just to provide it externally to the public. Thank you. Well, next subject. So my next topic for conversation is our website. And I'm smiling. So I do have good news. So we are going to go live with the website April 10th, 2024. Very exciting. And so, yes. And so we've been in this project for over 2 years. We originally said we were going to go live last year. And so, but we're here today, and we do believe that we needed the extra time. There were a number of things that both sides of this project just weren't expecting overall. The overall build and complexity of our current website was pretty amazing, including our applications and the things that we expect and the public expects that the website will do. We've worked through all of that. There's been some other things that happened that kind of slowed us down just recently. As of, for instance, November of 2023, Open, the company we've been working with, was acquired by another company. And then there was some significant staff turnover there again. And so the new programmers that came on had to come on board with us, relearn us, them, and then all the work that had been done thus far. So as a department, we went through and we made pretty much a big old list after we had moved all the content over and said, what is not working and what do we expect to work? Where are the problems? Where do we need things fixed? And then we went through that list again and categorized it as a 1, a 2, or a 3. A 1 was absolutely mandatory to go live. A 2 was very close behind going live, getting fixed. And a 3 was an expectation that we had originally, set and that we hoped would still be coming eventually, like the nice to haves within the website. And the new company has been fantastic to work with, and they're working all day, every day at this point. We've been testing all the things that they're fixing for us right now, the last of these. And so they'll be completely done by April 5th. And then April 10th, we're going to go live. As they've been going through, they're giving us a daily update of what is fixed, what's working, and then we're going in and we're just making sure that's all solid and holds day after day. I can't tell you how excited pretty much everybody in the department who's worked on this project is to have this done. And I'm extremely hopeful that it is the quality and the product that we want for the public to engage with us. some of the really big things that'll be very nice is that it'll be searchable. It'll have an opportunity to publish and archive material so that when you Google Game and Fish, you're not finding old press releases from 10 years ago as the first thing that pops up. And also, we're hoping that all of our analytics tools that we use and that other agencies use will be able to interface with the new website. So when we want to track clicks or grab stuff for download to archive or other things, we think it's going to function in a way that's going to be so much more user friendly. And it'll be in brand standards and hopefully clean, easy to find, and very consistent. I'll stand for any questions.
So, Mr. President, so Nish, that's gonna go live the week before we have our meeting, our next meeting.
I know.
And that will, so we'll get a good update on like everything, right? Or something like that.
Mr. President, Commissioner Bell, absolutely. You know, timing is everything. And with this website, we were very, very mindful of the timing, not only for the commission meeting, but primarily for all the individuals and people who are going to be putting in for the next draw for resident elk in May. And so we knew we just really needed to get this out in a good time for everybody. So I hope I'll have a great update.
I wouldn't let them do it on April 1st. That wasn't gonna win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hoping Dan was gonna do my update. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission, Director Nesvik. Agenda item number 20 is the former Saratoga Game Warden Station. So we've originally listed this property back in June of 2023 and have been looking for a buyer since then. We do have a full price offer of $355,000. The buyer is requesting $10,000 in closing costs and repairs. After the closing, we believe the property will close here at the end of the month, and the department's recommending that we move forward with this offer. So we're asking the commission to approve the sale of the former Saratoga Game Warden Station.
Mr. President. I guess I'll move that we approve the disposal of the Saratoga Game Warden Station.
I'd second.
Did you get?
Mr. President, a very quick question. The $10,000 credit, the answer is obvious because you're recommending that we proceed, but you're comfortable that that's a reasonable amount for updates and closing costs.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, yes, the $10,000 we feel is reasonable based on the market right now, the condition of the home, and the fact that we've had the market or the house on the market as long as we have, we'd like to move forward and get it sold. So yes, that is our recommendation.
All I was looking for was the assurance, Mr. President. Anyway, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the sale of the Saratoga Game Warden Station. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the last agenda item of the day is our usual Jackson housing update. So far, things are going fairly well, especially construction on site. We've had a few weeks of weather delays here and there based on snow, but nothing we didn't expect. The 3 houses that we showed you photos of at the previous meeting are set. The trusses are installed and they're working on the roofing as we speak. The other 3 3-bedroom units are scheduled to be delivered next week to be set. And then right behind those within a few days should be the 4-bedroom seasonal unit. So we're working diligently on that project. Our contractor has recently changed our project manager out on that on that job. So we're working through a little bit of details there to get that going. Along that, with that, the sewer connection, and the well and getting all that taken care of does require a DEQ permit. So some changes were requested as a result of that design being submitted to DEQ. So we've had some changes to the project that, while not major, did result in some anticipated cost increases that we are working through with the contractor that would be from the contingency that was approved by the commission when we originally approved the GMP. So we're working diligently through all that. We anticipate those costs to be somewhat of a significant portion of the contract contingency. We don't know what those are just yet. We are negotiating that with the contractor. When I'll be able to provide you with more solid numbers on that in April. But so far, we're working through everything, and the contractor's been good to work with. So that's all I have, barring any questions.
Hi.
Yes.
Commissioner Brokaw, if you have a question about Jackson, please go ahead. I had a question about a different topic, I think is for services.
Do you have something?
No, I'm sorry, I did not.
Okay. Go ahead.
And this may be better for Director Nesvik, but just curious what's going on with SPEES. Going okay, proceeding accordingly, that's all.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
Mr. President, Commissioner Masterson, I think Alan's probably the best person to answer that question.
I think that's all we have on the Jackson housing then. No other questions?
Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. President. I thought services might be the people to answer that, and since he was here.
I understand.
President Ladwick, Commissioners, President or Director Nesvik. So where we're at on SPEES is that our folks in the hatchery system and the engineers went through a selection process for the engineering. You might recall you had 2.5 million that set aside for that first phase. So they went through the selection process. They select out of 4, and they were all good companies, but they selected McMillan to do that. And that came in about 1.45, somewhere in there. And then with construction oversight, which is another very important part of it, that comes in at about $1 million. So we're slightly under the 2.5. It's about 2.4.5 is where that came in at. So they've been in negotiations with them, with McMillan, and they've got all their subcontractors lined out, including the construction oversight. So we're well on our way.
Super. And anything else, Commissioner?
Mr. President, if given the size of the project, the dollar amount, could we add just exactly that kind of an update going forward at meetings? Just a minute or two.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think that'd be a problem. I see Deputy Director making notes. So it should be on there next time.
Thank you.
Mr. President, one other, no, we got Alan up there. How's all the rest of the hatcheries doing?
Excellent.
Hatching.
Commissioner Roberts, they're doing excellent.
All of them. They're all happy?
All the fish are happy.
All running good?
Punky.
Yeah, thank you for that update.
So, yeah.
That was very important.
No, so we were on target for our kokanee spawn last fall, which is really huge with the way things went as far as our natural recruitment in a lot of these fisheries, we think. Right now, some of the fisheries or hatcheries are going into their spawning phase. Like Daniel, for instance, I think coming up in April will be spawning the Colorado cutthroat. I'll give you an update real quick on DuBois. We had that major project going there where we're at certain times of year, we had been running off of wells completely. And there was a real high iron content, you might recall, in one of those wells. So they did diversion off of the Jakey's Fork there. We got our water right back there. That's where we used to pull the water before whirling disease. And they just finished up or close to finishing up. They pulled all those big, large filters that were there and put some more infrastructure in there that will be able to treat the water coming off of Jakey's Fork for that whirling disease. And the crew did most of that themselves and saved the department a heck of a lot of money. So kudos to that crew out there at Du Bois. And then we've had some projects wrapping up at Wiggins, and then also at Clark's Fork, not Wiggins. But at Clark's Fork, we had an infrastructure where they were doing some affluent stuff, and that has been completed. Also, they're at Spees, they had a affluent project going on there too, and that's wrapping up. So lots of big projects those guys are doing. And so now we're going to be setting on Spees on top of that. So the crews are doing great jobs there.
And Mike, is there any way to do a state of the hatcheries address every year? So I watch it on television, but not
Anything for Commissioner Roberts. Yeah. Make a note.
Noted. Anybody else? Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Commissioners.
Appreciate your information. I guess we're down to the point right now for call to the public. Is Lisa Robertson on the?
No, she's right there.
Oh,
She's here.
Oh, hello, Lisa. I didn't see you back
been
there.
here all
I'm
the
sorry. Come on up. Well, most of us up here in front aren't doing much better.
Just right.
Am I the only one left here? Am I the last?
Oh, there's other people.
Well, I mean, to take your time.
Go ahead
It's
now.
okay. It's okay. We'll save the best for last. Good morning, President Ladwig, Director Nesvik, and members of the commission. It's good to see you all here again today. As you know, I'm Lisa Robertson, a 30-year resident in Wyoming. Next year, I will qualify as a pioneer trapper, which means I can trap for free for the rest of my life. Although I choose not to trap, but to contribute my dollars to the Game and Fish General Fund. In 2013, 2 pets were trapped in my hometown. I didn't know anything about trapping. One snared and one caught in a leg hold, which resulted in a $2,000 vet bill to remove several splintered teeth. Soon after, another dog in our town was caught in a trap and snare at once. The judge sentenced one trapper to a week in jail in our hometown with loss of license and more. We soon learned of the lack of trapping regulations for all animals in Wyoming. Our trap release workshop followed with over 100 attendees, which then led to the initiation of a nonprofit, Wyoming Untrapped. The word untrapped, meaning free, at liberty, alive, safe, has raised emotions from all of us for many reasons. We now ask, who doesn't know the meaning of being untrapped since the COVID period? We know that we want the freedom to roam more than ever, and our public lands are that place that takes us there. Many pets have been killed in Wyoming. Sage was killed in a snare set for bobcats next to the trail in Afton. That was 2017. I don't know if you remember that. There was a gathering, a group, but they burned out pretty quickly. 3 St. Bernards in Casper in 2018. Mac was killed in 2020 by a deadly power snare in Lander. 2023, Roxy was killed in a snare set illegally on a wire fence in Gillette. That was last November. In 2024, Jester was killed. Y'all know about that in 330 Conover in Afton. There are many more. Wyoming Entrapped has built the only database in the state of all reported domestic animal trapping or snaring incidents that have been reported to us since 2013, most of which we investigated until the case was closed. We thank the Game and Fish for helping us through that with each investigation. We also have a database of all the department reported non-target wild animals killed since 1995 when these incidents were recorded. And there's a corresponding map that goes with each of that. As an example of information collected, we can respond to a statement made yesterday during public comment that our W data indicates that otter populations are healthy. However, there have been only 33 recorded reports of non-target trapping and snaring of protected otters since 1984. The first report was in the Pinedale region in a period of 40 years, which averages only one non-target otter reported each year. There were 3 non-target otters reported last year. We don't know about this year. There were, let me find my place. I typed this up at midnight last night. There were 3 otters reported in 2023. Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. We don't know how many non-target animals have officially been killed since reporting is voluntary and required reporting is minimal. The number of injured or dead non-target or protected animals that have been tossed into dumpsters or ditches, as was stated yesterday, oops. All we can do is to make a probable high number guesstimate. Without reliable data, without population counts of all of our big little wildlife, we question any science foundation. We take pride in posting facts to educate the public and to advocate for change, which will save needless injuries and deaths. WU has provided an untrapped pack of release tools on our website. We've taught over 22 unbiased trapped release workshops throughout the state and provided unbiased trap safety for pet owners brochures available in foldable format or downloadable to your smartphone. You were given one of those today, I believe. And it has been used. We've gotten phone calls about if I didn't have this, I would not have been able to release my pet. And that was the last one we heard from was in Laramie. We petitioned the commission. Oh, wait a minute. You want to hear this one? We have a bee snare aware educational page. And we have assisted in local campaigns in other locations following the increase in trapping incidents. 50% of recorded incidents were illegal, such as in Laramie. We petitioned the commission in 2021 to address trapping reform, and you responded. We appreciate that. A Lander group, Wyoming Trap Free, Mott County, joined us after the death of a beloved pet. We take pride in posting facts to educate the public and to advocate for change which will prevent needless injuries and death of domestic and wild animals. We are steadfast in our belief that our Wyoming wildlife deserve better and that Wyoming can do better. Collaboration can get us there. W submitted 2 interim topics 2 weeks ago for review by the TRW committee, sponsored by Senator Guru from our hometown. The new impressive group from Afton submitted 2 interim requests as well, sponsored by Republican Representative Byron. The TRW committee chose not to take on the added workload, and the following discussion led to recommendations to address our issues through the commission and department. This is where we are now. WU has requested mandatory trapper education for the last 10 years and has reached out to the legislature twice. We also requested fur bear trapping setbacks in areas statewide with a high potential for conflict between trappers and non-trappers. These areas could include high-use trails, developed campground, boat ramps, picnic areas, and trailheads. We also recommend a minimum of 300-foot setbacks as already set by Montana. Our area is ready to go and could be used for a starter look. We have GIS maps of the setback areas, numbers of recreationists on the heaviest used trails compiled in 2021, most likely tripled today, and descriptions of each area. Fremont County also provided trail names in 2021 and more of a checkerboard look. We are all ready to go to get this done by the fur bear season, October 1st. We thank the Commission for directing Game and Fish to review trapping reform again this year with a presentation at the April Commission meeting in Riverton. WU is ready to offer our educated recommendations along with our statewide partners, supporters, collaborators, and more. A last note, just 3 sentences. We promote a realistic day wildlife management narrative to value and protect wildlife as vital contributors of our public landscapes, the significant impact of wildlife watching on tourism, Wyoming's second largest industry, and 3, and the intrinsic character and worth of all fur-bearing and wild animals. With great gratitude, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments and you kind of said it, but we did direct the department last evening to do the work that you were talking about and report back to us in April at the meeting. So we'll do what we can. We'll see what we can get done and appreciate your comments and everybody else's comments and we'll carry on from here.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you can take the rest of the day off.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public?
Mr. President.
Any comment from the crews?
Move to adjourn.
Is there?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if I was part of the crew or you meant the crew. I swear
Commissioner.
I'll be brief. And this is to all of you as well. The last year and a half has been a real poop sandwich for me. And every one of you since I've got on the commission has been incredibly accommodating, incredibly gracious, helpful, patient. And I just wanted to tell you all how much I appreciate it. I've never felt more welcome and more at home quicker in my whole life. And now that I can walk, I'm going to haunt you at your offices and at your places of recreation. I just wanted to thank you all. It's very, very appreciated. And I know my wife feels the same way. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner Masterson. I know that my brain is almost mush, so I'd welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.